afternoon and it will go on till around 7 in the evening. For today we have three sessions lined up. Starting with the session with Mr. Gurcharan Das, who's already present. Sir, kindly take your seat, sir, please. And Ms. Sonia Singh, who will be the moderator for the session today. Following this, we have two more sessions lined up. The next session coming up is with Dr. Anand Raghunathan, and after that there's one session on Kabir with Mr. Vipul Dikhi. So we start our session today with conversation between Mr. Gurcharan Das and Sonia ji here. We are going to be talking about the latest book written by Mr. Das here. It is Another Sort of Freedom, a memoir published by publishers. And Mr. Singh, I think we are all very familiar with Mr. Gurcharan Das here. He's the renowned author of India Unbound and the Difficulty of Being Good, which are volumes 1 and 2 of a trilogy on life's goals, of which Karma, the Riddle of Desire is the third. His India Grows at Night was on the FT's best books for 2013. His other works include a novel, A Fine Family, and an anthology, 3 plays. He studied philosophy at Harvard University and received Phi Beta Kappa for high attainments in liberal scholarship. He's and carry on the program. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Madam. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much, Mr. Gurcharan Das, for giving me this opportunity. So, for those of you who haven't, I've read the book, Another Sort of Freedom, and it really is a must-read. Not just because about what it tells you about this extraordinary man I'm going to interview, but also about the extraordinary times he lived through of this great country. So, Mr. Das, if I could begin by asking you, the difficulty of being good became a national, international bestseller. There was Karma, the Riddle of Desire, and now Another Sort of Freedom. What do you think illustrates the difficulty of being good in your life and this book?
Thank you, Sonia. I'm delighted to be here. You are brave people to come in this cold weather, and at least I hope we'll have a little bit of fun. So, we go back to answer your question. What was the Katinai in my life? Lots of Katinai. And lots of difficulties, but let's begin. I'm in kindergarten, almost 5 years old, Lahore. Model town, and I'm in a class where all the kid who sits next he's the richest kid in class. He's the only one who comes to school in a car. We all walk to school. I'm shiny red one. So one day at recess, the classroom, and I pick up, teacher also goes, I pick up the pencil box on the rich kid's table and put it on my stick. Must be some socialist instinctively. I don't know, but or also a desire that everybody should have it. But I do it. And then after recess, everybody comes back to class, and the rich kid screams, "Who stole my pencil box?" And the teacher gets worried also because he's the richest kid in class. And So we all stand up and she goes around the room asking each one. And when it comes to Ayan's turn, he says, yes, there's a pencil box on my table, but I didn't put it there. Of course, nobody believes of the time for me to confess that I did it. But I don't know what happens to me. I'm frozen. The whole is over. I mean, she goes around and then she calls Ayan in front because she's going to punish him. And so, point, Ayan screams, you know I didn't dare. Why don't you say something? And I remain frozen. And you know that, so the poor kid is punished.
And you still remember this. It's still such an
Yeah, I mean, for years I had nightmares. A few months later is independence. This is 47. And it was 47 when the pencil box incident happened. And it is August 47. And we are Hindus running for our lives. And luckily we crossed the border, and then we are at Jalandhar station. And waiting for our train to move. And on the platform is a Muslim. There's another show going on in here, I think. Why don't you finish this and then we'll commence? And then two boys come absolutely out of the blue. They're Sikh boys. And they stab the policeman with their kirpans. And they shout, Musalman. And it was a Muslim, very handsome Muslim policeman. And my mother shuts the window of the train.
How old were you when this happened?
5.
And you remember this so clearly, both these incidents.
Yeah. And you know, again, the only way I can explain these two incidents is temporary insanity. Meaning, in my case, I thought I was doing something good, and I ended up hurting the very person I was helping. And in the case of the Muslim policeman, these two strangers, they didn't know him. Just because he was Muslim, they killed him. And suddenly, you know, it was very hard to understand that people who had lived as neighbors cheerfully started killing each other just in the name of religion. And the only explanation I can give is my temporary insanity over the pencil box and the whole nation's, well, not nation, Punjab's insanity during the partition. Both were examples of temporary insanity. And this story is scarred me for the rest of my life.
When you read this book, freedom in it, when you say another sort of freedom refers to so many different things. And you seem to have almost turned away from an imprisonment you felt at different stages of your life. Tell us, what did you mean by freedom here? What's the freedom you're looking for?
Well, I'll answer your question in a roundabout way. When my mother wrote a diary, one of the reasons why I've been able to recall so many incidents from childhood is that she wrote them down. And the first reference to me in her diary, and she gave me the diary before she died, and the first mention of me comes when I am 3 months old, and she says, "This is a restless baby." A year later, she's calling me a difficult child. And then another year later, she's calling me a troublemaker. And when I go to school in that same class, and the teacher gets every day irritated with me because I raise my hand and I'm always asking something which is not allowed. And so my name, by the way, used to be Ashok Kumar. That was
You went from Ashok Kumar to Gurcharan Das.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. But Ashok Kumar is what I was called. And suddenly she starts calling me Nahi Kumar. Because I'm always Nahi every day. And so, Sonia, why my name changed? Because my mother gave me that name. But my grandmother, her mother-in-law, suspected that my mother gave me that name because she thought my mother was secretly in love with a Bollywood actor named Ashok Kumar. So this was not right. And so she takes me to her guru, places me at his feet, and she says, "Guruji enu na deo." And the guru smiles down at me, and I smile up at him. And then he says, "Acha, othe mainu rakhya hai, enu Guru Charan Das bulavani." And so, at the age of 4.5, I'm transformed from the Prince of Happiness, Ashok Kumar, Prince of Happiness, to the Guru Charan Das, the humble servant of the feet of the Guru. So, many years later, I asked the Guru, "Why did you give me that name?" And he says, it's a little bit of humility is good to be reminded of it every so often. But he gave the very best definition of humility I ever heard, and I will ever hear, and you will ever hear. His definition of humility was to take your work seriously, but not yourself seriously. And so I've dedicated this book, Sonia, and I'll read it out. It's dedicated to the happy few who don't take themselves seriously. And so that is the secret of another sort of freedom, which is really all of us live by expectations. Our families have expectations of us, our peers, and society has expectations of us. Most of all, our egos have expectations. I mean, our expectation of us is, one of the ego's expectation is, I want to be somebody. I don't want to be nobody, right? And in this way, vanity, envy, status anxiety, self-importance, all these are pathologies of that. And really, in a sense, once you've read the book, you'll know that it's been that has defined my journey. And I wasn't aware of this struggle. I wasn't aware of this until I started reliving my life because when you write an autobiography, you actually relive your life. And I've discovered a secret. I'll tell you the secret. Reliving your life is better than living it. And you know why? Because you can play God. You decide what happens to you. And so you connect all these dots in your life which don't have any connection at all to make some sort of sense. Because you have to tell a story of a person.
And you actually find all these connections when you look back, in a way which almost seems like it's been divine or ordained in some sense. Because otherwise, who would think that you, a young boy in a small village, actually made it to Harvard? And the story of how you made it there itself is just pure chance. And also, again, and I have to tell you this about Gurcharan Das, if you read the book, he really is Nahi Kumar, because every time someone tells him you can't do something, he does it. So tell us what led to that boy from this small village actually making it to Harvard through high school in America?
Well, so we are jumping now from when I'm 5 to when I am 13. And at 13, my father has been transferred by the government. He's an engineer, my father. And he's been, like two other people, three engineers have been seconded and sent to Washington, D.C., where they are negotiating a dispute between India and Pakistan. And the World Bank is the mediator because the World Bank is going to give money to both countries. Because these are Punjab's rivers, they start in India but they flow into Pakistan. And so that's the dispute. And so when my father goes to the World Bank on the first day, he finds that Pakistan has sent 125 lawyers and India has sent 3 engineers. And the president of World Bank gets up and tells the Pakistanis, please send back your 125 lawyers, send 3 engineers. We're going to sit down with the with the maps of the rivers, and we are deciding how to divide the waters. We don't need lawyers. Anyway, at the same time, he's giving this advice to Pakistan. I've arrived in my first day in school, and they put me in a class where my mother discovers that I'm way ahead. I was in modern school in Delhi, so I'm suddenly sent over to this American high school. And so she goes to the principal the next day and she says, give him a test and decide then what class he belongs to. And the principal is very skeptical, and then she says, okay, if you don't want to change his class, at least the class has 5 sections. There are 200 people in that class, and it has 5 sections. 2 sections are called college preparatory sections. These are kids who are expected to go to college. And 3 sections are called vocational, meaning they will be prepared to get factory jobs after school. And so she said, at least put him in a college prep section. And you know, the principal, he's an old redneck from the south. And he looks at the color of my skin and he says, welcome to America, son. In our country, colored boys not supposed to get too big for their boots. And my mother is shocked at this racist remark. And he says, now son, you stay out of trouble. And after you graduate from school, you get a diploma. And There are lots of factories opening around here in Virginia and Maryland, and you'll get a good factory job. Welcome to America. Welcome to the American dream. That's what he says.
Oh God.
And of course, my mother's horrified. And so one of the classes I have to attend as a part of the vocational section is called shop. And in shop we learn carpentry, we learn to do things with our hands, repair a radio and so on, all good skills. My mother, when she discovers I'm learning those things, she says, hi, like a Punjabi mother, एक काम ते सारे नीचे वाले लोग करते हैं, the लोग नहीं करते. Our types of people are not supposed to do this. And suddenly, I discover caste. You know, you can grow up in Delhi, sheltered, and it's not in your face, caste, as it is in a village. So I discovered caste in America, linking it with racism in America. And so the happy side of the story was that there was a birthday party. One of the girls in our school, in my class, had a birthday party. And she came from a liberal family, and they invited both blacks and whites to this party. And we ate a lot. It was great feasts there. And then we played a game called Spin the Bottle. I don't know if any of you know the game, but it's very popular at that time, where you sit in a circle on the ground and somebody spins the bottle.
I think they've seen it in American movies. I think they would have.
Okay, so and where the mouth of the bottle ends, you get to kiss the person of the opposite sex, where the thing ends. And so, but the unwritten rule in this particular thing was that black boys kissed only black girls and white boys kissed only white girls. This is before the civil rights movement, by the way. Anyway, when it comes to my turn, everybody's confused. Ye kya karega? And so I solved that problem by kissing everybody. I kissed black girls, I kissed white girls. And because I kiss them so often, I get bonus points. And so I get to kiss the whole evening. And so 4 years later, I graduate from school at the top of my class. And I get scholarships to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale.
Fantastic.
And so the same wretched deputy principal calls me, and he's reading the Washington Post. My picture's there. A story of a boy from India makes good is the title of that article, and he's reading it, and so he asks, he's asked me to come. And so he says, we are proud of you, son. Nobody in our school has got 3 scholarships like that. And you've achieved the American dream. And I'm tempted to remind him that his idea of the American dream 4 years ago was quite different. But I'm too decent a person, so I don't do that. Anyway, so to jump to answer about, I go to Harvard because that's everybody has heard of Harvard, and I come home that summer. But the dispute is over. India and Pakistan have come to an agreement, and my parents have gone back home, and so I'm back home, and I'm leaving to catch an Air India plane at Palam Airport. My mother has tears in her eyes, and in between those tears, she says, study something useful. You have to come back and get a job and work hard. Come first. And so when I arrive at Harvard, and she said, why don't you become an engineer like your father? You'll get a job. Engineers are needed in our country. And so I arrive at Harvard and I promptly forget her advice. And I see the course catalog. And it blows my mind. It's a treasure chest. And so instead of remembering my mother's advice, what do I study in the first 2.5 years? Greek tragedy, Russian novel, history of capitalism, Renaissance painting, Bauhaus architecture, and Sanskrit love poetry. I take a course in Sanskrit love poetry, and my mother hears about this, and she says, hi, eno kaun naukri dega, dead language, only the dead people will give him a job.
I said, in fact, one thing that struck me in the book was really how you talk so much with your mother, but also your father's influence. And I think what he told you, that it's not about making a living, but making a life. And I think that's really something, even when you see all the young people today, everybody's so worried about what they'll do next, but it really is about making a life.
Yeah, I was lucky because my father really was an engineer, but he was also a mystic, a Sufi, Bhakti type of person. And he would always remind, she used to say, make a living, he'd say, make a life. And so I grew up with these two influences, and he was the one who explained to my mother, reassured her, that he's making a life with books. And so she felt a little bit reassured. But in my third year, even Harvard got worried and said, now you've got to declare. Dean called me and he says, you've got to declare a major. And what will your major be? Now, I had my best course I had taken was in philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, and so on. And so I said, philosophy. And he said, why? And I said, I want to be happy. He said, that's a good reason to take philosophy. Anyway, I graduated in philosophy, and then I got a scholarship to do a PhD at Oxford. So that summer, I'm home in Chandigarh with my parents. My father works for the Punjab government. And I asked myself one evening, do I really want to spend the rest of my life at that stratosphere of abstract thought? No. So I get cold feet. And then I decide that I don't want to go to Oxford. I want a life of action. I don't know what that life of action is, but then my mother's worst nightmare has come true. She has an unemployed, grown-up son, Vela. That's the word in Punjabi, Vela. Huh? And we have a nosy neighbor, and she visits my mother in the mornings to have coffee. And she asks every time, "Thoda munda ki kar raha hai?" And my mother gets so embarrassed, she doesn't know what to say. And so I see her embarrassment, and I answered the first advertisement I find in the newspaper, and it is for a company which makes Vicks Vapor Rub. And they want trainees. I don't know what a trainee is. And so, but they call me for an interview. And I go for the interview. And the man asks me, what is your objective? Uh, what is your objective? And I say, to be happy. And he says, no, no, that's not. What is it? Do you want to be in finance, marketing, manufacturing, what? And at that moment, a beautiful, stunning woman walks in with tea and coffee for us. He must be his secretary. And my attention is totally diverted to her. And then she puts the tea and coffee and goes out. And he says, so you were talking about your objective. What will make you happy, since you said happy? And I said, a beautiful woman.
It's a very patient interviewer.
I realized this interview is not going very well from the expression on his face. But he's a tolerant sort of chap. He realizes this guy has been doing philosophy. And so I feel I flubbed the interview. I come home feeling depressed. Naukri nahi milegi, but I get a job. I guess they get impressed by the Harvard degree.
Maybe the honesty.
Or whatever. Anyway, so I start working for this company, and I could tell you more stories, but only one story, Sonia, I have to tell you. This is the time of the license Raj. So there's a flu in the country. There's a flu in the country. By this time, I have risen in the company quite high, and we sell a hell of a lot of Vicks Vaporub that year because of the flu. And so we are feeling good. Company's made record profits. Our headquarters in America is very happy. And a summons arrives from the government, and our legal manager, the company secretary, comes to me, shows me this summons, which says we have broken the law. And what is the law? That we had, our license was to produce only so many tons of Vicks Vaporub. And we have exceeded it like 30% over. And
So you're punished for producing more Vicks Vaporub.
Exactly. That is what the whole thing is about. So I'm called to Delhi to explain what happened. And I'm called by a joint secretary in the MRTP part of the government. And so I've got two lawyers on my side. And first of all, the officer makes us wait for 2 hours. And then he calls us in. And he's reading the newspaper. And we are waiting for His Highness to acknowledge us. But he keeps reading the paper. And then he puts his paper down casually and he says, Kya? What do you want? And I said, sir, you have called us. You tell us, Kya? And he said, no, I haven't seen your file. What's the issue? So I explain to him, I show him the summons. And he says, you've broken the law. I said, yes, but I'll tell you what happened. There was a flu, and we thought we were producing for the country. Millions of children, mothers, etc., with anxiety. We helped them through this period. We just did our duty to keep the chemist shops stocked with our product. And he says, but you've broken the law. I said, yes, we have broken the law. He said that the law will now take its course. And frankly, I want to make an example of your company. Too many, you're all crooks in the private sector. I think he must have been a Marxist. And he said, you're all crooks, especially your multinational companies. You pay your managers big, you give them big cars, and here it's a poor country, and you are bloodsuckers. Amy says something about East India Company or something like that. Anyway, by this time I really am scared, and the lawyers are shivering. And I'm hoping one of the lawyers will say something, but they keep quiet. So then in the end he says, "Jao, get out of my office." And as I'm leaving his office, I turn around suddenly, and I don't know what got into me, but I say, "Sir, this news will get out. It's not every day that an executive of a multinational company is jailed." The sentence, by the way, is 3 years. To break that law was a 3-year sentence. Of course, it was at the discretion. That was the maximum punishment. But suddenly I have this vision of going to jail for 3 years. And so I say the news will get out. We are an American company. So the New York Times, Washington Post, all over the world and in India, they will report this. And they will tell the story that here's a company that during an epidemic in the country produced and helped millions of children in the country and adults. And I asked him, what do you think our company will look in the eyes of the world? What do you think our Prime Minister will look like in the eyes of the world? And frankly, what will you look like defending such a thing? And he said, "Are you threatening me?" I said, "No, I'm just telling you this is going to happen. I'm not going to leak the news. It'll come out." And he says, "Jao." And when I come out, the lawyer says to me, "Idiot, you should have fallen at his feet and begged for mercy." Anyway, the fact is I had sleepless nights, but the government quietly dropped this issue, this inquiry.
That deserves a round of applause. For sure.
Well, you know, most of you would have no experience of what it was like to work in a socialist command economy like that, where you won your market share not in the market, but in a bureaucrat's office and you got the license. And where in the name of, I don't blame Nehru, because Nehru, everybody was a socialist. I was a socialist. And Nehru just wanted an egalitarian economy. But he asked, and the bureaucracy gave him a command, a license, Raj. But nevertheless, he was the owner and he deserves. But worse, Indira Gandhi. By the time Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister, the world had seen there was another way. Japan had risen, Korea had risen, Taiwan had risen, all had risen on the back of the export of low-tech, labor-intensive manufactures. And we were persisting with this idea. And so for 40 years till 91, we got our independence not in 1947. We got our political independence. We got our economic independence in 1991. And so, Sonia, I mean, to me, that was real Azadi. And so one of the reasons, so I by this time, I was the head of the company, CEO of Procter & Gamble. And I was moved to the world headquarters of the company, managing director for global strategy. And so I'm in that job, and I hear the radio in the car coming to work that the reform NPR, that the reforms in India are in trouble, Narasimha Rao is in trouble, the Congress party is against him, and he was being targeted, and there was a fear. The leftists are saying that the left wing of the Congress party is saying you have sold out by having these reforms.
Reform by stealth, as it were. And so do you find it interesting? Because of course you then, and maybe I'm jumping a bit, but have written so much on Indian reforms. We're now at the verge where really reform is the mantra, where we're talking about India becoming the third largest economy. So has it interested you, when you, as an observer, as a writer, as an analyst of these trends, that how India has changed from 91 now to 24, when we seem to be on the verge of becoming the third largest economy, looking at being a developed economy by 2047?
Yeah. Well, so the story, just to finish, Sonia, is I'm at the world headquarters, and frankly, I'm not very happy, because headquarters jobs are bureaucratic jobs. And here, India, there's a fire burning in India, and my fear is that the reforms might get reversed. And so I met, when I was running the company, I met Manmohan Singh, who is the finance minister now. So I shot off a telegram to him, and I said I was very worried. And why don't you sell the reforms? You know, we were doing this reforms chupke. In the name of Gandhi and Nehru and Indira Gandhi, we were doing these reforms. Of course, reversing totally the policy of Indira Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. And so he, very decent man, he replied, and he said, why don't you come and defend the reforms? And he knew by then I was writing and so on. And I was a weekend writer. And so I went to my wife and explained to her. She said, look, retirement age is 65. You're just 50. Why do you want to quit at the top of your career? Millions of dollars you can earn. And so I explained to her, sat down, this will be our expenses, this is our savings, the rest are savings, we can make ends meet. Your standard of living now will not go up, but hopefully it will not go too far down. Achieve the good support. We came back. So that's how I switched from being business person to a writer. And I got, since I've been writing a bit, so I started writing for Times of India. And then they gave me a column. And I was writing first once a week, then once in 15 days, and now I'm still writing once a month. So, and I was mostly defending the reforms. That's
I'm going to let you have some water, because we've been talking so much, and then everybody's getting some tea.
I hope we haven't run out of time.
No, I don't think so, but I just checked. I don't think so, because I want audience questions as well, because I think of keeping us all spellbound. Well, we don't have very much time. It's 6:51. So I
think the last thing I can talk about just is the another sort of freedom.
Yes.
And what is that other sort of freedom? And what is the lesson? So I've had a career, two careers. I've had a career as a as a business person and have had a career as a writer. I've been a writer now for 30 years. And when I became a writer, I had hoped that I would become a better human being. But that has not happened. And
You're being modest now.
no, it's true. Because really, in fact, I've discovered the opposite. Because I've been both a business person and a writer. I've discovered that actually business people are nicer people than writers. Why? Why? Because a businessman has to, he can't do everything himself. So he needs customers and he has to produce for his customers and he has to be, well, even Ratan Tata bows down to his customer. Secondly, he has suppliers. So you have to be fair to your suppliers. The temptation is to squeeze your suppliers. If you do that, you'll get hurt. You'll get a substandard component. And the business person has employees. And you have to be respectful to your employees. Otherwise, they leave you and they go to your competitor. You'll get into trouble because then they'll put you down. So business person instinctively knows doesn't have to think about anyone except himself. And so I'll give you an example. The other day, I went to Bari and Sons to check out how the book was selling, and I didn't find it in the window. So I went protesting to Bari, and I said, "Bhai, ye kya ho raha hai? Put my book in the window." So he reluctantly मान गया. And he put it in the back. And I said, "Nahi, aage. You see, ego, vanity, all these things. So this doesn't. So another sort of freedom is freedom from that. Freedom from expectations, freedom from, mostly from the ego. And it lies in self-forgetting. That
You talk about moksha and lagima.
That's right. This is exactly. So this is freedom. And this is a secular moksha for the 21st century. You don't need to go to religion or meditation and all that. It's to try and diminish your ego. And you'll be happier, the world will be happier if you can do that. And really it comes out of doing something where you have a sense of purpose, where you love your work. I mean, my simple definition of happiness is to love the work you do and love the person you live with. And this idea of freedom is, I've seen it, you forget. I mean, when I'm writing now, I write from 6 to 12 every morning. And when I'm really absorbed, I just see fingers are clicking and the writing is appearing. And I don't even exist. It's a bit like Tendulkar. Just before his double century, that famous last double century that Tendulkar did. And the reporter asked him, how did it feel like getting close to your double century? And Tendulkar says, I wasn't there. By then the bat had become so big and the ball had become so big that the bat was just hitting the ball. That is self-forgetting. And that is another sort of freedom that I'm talking about.
I think that sounds absolutely marvelous, something I wish all of us could aim for. But maybe we can just take 2 or 3 questions. I'm not sure if we have time, but if anybody would like to ask questions, I'm sure Mr. Das would love to answer. Go ahead, ma'am. I think you just have to speak loudly. Is there a question you can take?
बहुत दिनों बाद आपको सुना मैंने. Years ago you spoke very well in Fiki, if you remember. Just a very simple question. Some very, very deep lines you have mentioned. Then you mentioned the word happiness time and again. After reliving your life in this book, which chapter, which part of your life you think you were the happiest of achieving something which you wanted? Which part of your life?
Well, I would say, actually, there were many times which were good, many times that were not so good, and many times that were bad. So it's like anyone's life. And the good, I mean, I had a happy childhood, amazing, but I had a happy childhood, despite being Nahi Kumar. And I would say as a writer, I would say that that was a better period because I didn't report to anybody. Even when I was CEO, I had a board of directors that I reported to. And so, as a writer, you have that freedom, you know, to do what you want. But it also is a responsibility, meaning you don't say in the morning, today I'm not in the mood. You show up. Woody Allen said the secret of success, 80% of success is just showing up. So you just show up and you start whatever you have to do.
Just one line if Sonia would allow that. I'm Brahma Pandya, by the way, I'm author also. This one incident, did it really keep coming to you back again when you were so young? When you saw that Muslim police officer being murdered there, does that image remains with you?
The image of the person who was killed on the platform, as well as my Muslim neighbor, the boy with the pencil box also.
Yeah.
Both are, I used to get nightmares from both of those incidents.
Does it appear in any of your books anywhere?
In this book?
In the memoirs?
Yeah.
Are you very happy to write your reliving of your life?
Yeah. I mean,
We're all looking forward to seeing.
it's, you know, you discover yourself when you write a book like this.
And one more book after that. Lot of life is there. All the best.
Thank you. Okay, I think we are being told this is the end of the show.
I think there's one question there. Yeah, please. Do it, Harsh.
Good evening, sir. It's a huge thing I'm seeing you here in person today. Read a lot of your books when I was young, and I remember the very first book I read, The Difficulty of Being Good, is one book which kind of got me and kind of initiated into a different kind of journey to follow. So, and I want to ask something from there itself. I've read the book too, though, and I mean, that book came out like decades ago. And if I ask you today, just one tip, one highest thing one can do to remain good without finding it very difficult. Just one thing, if we follow, we can actually get there. Thank you.
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. But I can say one thing. I'm glad you mentioned that because I still believe that it is, you know, a world of achievements, and we are. People say, "Oh, this guy became a CEO, then he became a successful, famous writer," and ultimately, you know, when I talk about the struggle, you read the book, so it's really, I think, one act of goodness is one of the most valuable things that you possess. And so I think we should measure our lives in a different way. That measure it, and this is why this struggle, because I wasn't hurting anyone through my life, but I was always self-oriented, and one has to learn to be other-oriented, and that's a very difficult thing to do. And you were saying to talk about one incident. Well, read the book. There'll be lots of incidents. Fine.
I just want to continue, the same thread, what you were saying and how you concluded your beautiful talk, sir. So you were saying the words which flow out of you in the morning, they have become like, the Sachin's bat and ball. So in that sense, what I felt was what you do in the morning, you don't report to anybody, but it has become your meditation in the morning when you are just seeing bat and ball have become so large.
Well, that's very nice of you. I appreciate that. And there is a technique. I mean, technique meaning we all play games with ourselves, but we don't have somebody to report to, a boss or anyone when we go to work. And so you have to use tricks with yourself. One of the tricks I find in the morning is I don't do anything else. I don't do email in the morning. I don't answer telephones in the morning. I don't do any social media in the morning. I don't read the newspaper in the morning. I don't do yoga in the morning. I don't take a walk, all the good things you're supposed to do, yoga and all that. Because I'm always afraid that would pull my mind away from my agenda. So that's the thing. Be on your own agenda. This is the tip that I could leave for you.
So thank you, Gurcharan Das ji and Sonia ji. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion and being part of the Delhi Literature Festival 2024. Before I request both of you to step down, I'll request Ms. Bharti Bhargava and Pallavi. She represents Pools of Heart, a gifting partner, to present a token of gratitude and a small, merchandise. There's a Delhi Literature Festival mug and chocolates. Sonia ji, for you as well. So can we have a group photograph there, all four of you, please, together. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting session to follow by Dr. Anand Ranganathan, whom you all know, and his book on Hindu Rashtra is already a #1 bestseller. And to be in discussion with him is Mr. Pavan Verma, former Member of Parliament, and he himself has been an author. He's written several books on authors. Can we have a round of applause for Sonia ji and Mr. Gurcharan Das? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the last session tonight is going to be an amazing session, I assure you. It's a live performance and also the bestseller, Drunk on Love, The Life, Vision and Songs of Kabir by Vipul Rikhi, in conversation with Dr. Amna Mirza. So I'll request all of you to please stay till the end session. And I must inform all of you that the formal inaugural session of the Delhi Literature Festival 2024 happens tomorrow around 12 noon. We have Honorable Minister for Culture and External Affairs, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi ji. And I also must inform you that the Honorable Chairman of Maruti Suzuki has written a new book, Mr. R.C. Bhargava. He's going to be here for the launch of that book. And we have Dr. Sonal Mansingh, who's also the Patron-in-Chief of Delhi Literature Festival, Member of Parliament. She's an acclaimed dancer and she has been an ambassador of Indian culture. So she'll also be there. So 12 o'clock we start, and before that we have 11 o'clock tomorrow we have Mr. Victor Ghosh, who's been a friend, and he's also been a big support. He's an author, he's an artist. We'll do some live musical performance. So we'll start assembling around 11 o'clock tomorrow, and Vinita ji is here. Thank you so much. She's moderating a session. Rama ji se hum log mile hi hain. Ashwin se we have had enough of Ashwin tonight. So I'll request Dr. Anand Ranganathan, if he's around. We spend some time. Anand, we're all waiting to see you and hear you. And I hope Mr. Pavan Verma ji is here. He's here. Very nice. Can you get them, please? So I'll request all of you to stay seated, please. The weather is nice. I was a bit apprehensive that it would, but I don't think it's pretty pleasant. What do you think? Huh? It's pleasant, yeah, it's pleasant. And you know, I must thank our friends who have come all the way from Sikkim University are here. So can we have a round of applause for these youngsters who come all the way from Sikkim? And here we have the author, the bestseller author, Dr. Anand Ranganathan. He's been making waves on the prime time. Thank you, thank you. And we have Pavan Varji. Huh? So here we have the flamboyant Mr. Pavan Varma ji. Thank you so much for being here with his signature beautiful shawl always on his shoulder. Can we have a round of applause for him? You know, he's an amazing author. We all know he's written books on Hindus. And of course we have Dr. Anand Ranganathan. His book is now a #1 bestseller. So, you want to? I'll request Ms. Bharti Bhargava, founder director, to formally introduce both the authors before we start the session. Thank you.
So I think we all are very familiar with Dr. Ranganathan over here. We've heard him on many evenings on talking about different things, you know. And he has written. Though he's genetic engineering, he's done in biotechnology, but he's very good with words, and he's written several books. 5 of them have already been released, and we had him earlier also last year with us for his book Souffle. And now on to Mr. Varma here. I think we are all familiar with him also earlier. We have had the pleasure of having with us earlier occasion. He's a writer diplomat. He also has written very many books. And now I think without much ado, I will hand over the stage and the mic to Mr. Varma. Thank you so much.
Good evening. It's a great pleasure to be here, even though, frankly, I am freezing. The amphitheater is not the best place, but I'm sure we'll make up for the extreme cold by the heat generated by what Anand says today. So,
I hope there'll be more light than heat, but
in fact, although we often differ and are very often on television debates together, I have great respect for his courage of conviction, for his mastery of facts, for his ability to recall them at the right time, and for his clear-headed enunciation of what he believes is right. We can disagree with him in what he believes in, but he's an angry young man about some things. And therefore my first question to you is, आनंद रंगनाथन को इतना गुस्सा क्यों आता है?
first of all, thank you so much, Pavanji. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be sitting next to you yet again. It's a real pleasure. And thank you so much to the organizers, to Anilji, to everyone. It's like coming home again. I remember very fondly I was here last year for my book that was fiction. This time it's a non-fiction book. And first of all, thank you so much for such warm compliments. If my wife were to give even 5% of those, I think my life is...
Wives usually know the truth.
No, but I think this promises to be the next 45 minutes, I think, a lovely freewheeling discussion on the topic Hindus in Hindu Rashtra. But let me begin by the question that you asked. Honestly, mujhe gussa nahi aata. Or, people might see sometimes on debates that, oh, this guy is getting all worked up. But right when I'm getting worked up, I might be giving this confession out here. So I hope no one's recording it. That whenever I'm getting worked up, the person on whom I'm getting worked up, I'm communicating by WhatsApp saying, Dora mat manna yaar.
I haven't got any such message.
Because you've never given me an opportunity to be angry with you, honestly. But I think गुस्सा आने के बहुत reasons हैं इस देश में. खुश होने के भी बहुत reasons हैं. And we really are, I would say, forever we have been on an inflection point. I think ours is a country where we always about to leapfrog, but somehow, sometimes, I don't know, or at times what happens, we leap into a well. So we are a frog in a well. And if you remember, I always, when I was young, although he's called me an angry young man, thank you for that compliment. Dr. Kalam, who had not yet become president, he put forth a beautiful small booklet and he said Vision 2020. And he said this was 1992-93. And he said by 2020, I guarantee you that we will be a superpower. We will be developed, And now we are in 2024, and we all know the state. We're not even a middle-income economy. Our GDP is $2,500 per capita. We're far from them. Maybe, I think, 15-20 years behind what middle-income economies are. The parameter is, of course, there are per capita. But we've achieved so much to be proud of since 1990, and that is my cutoff point, because that is when the liberalization started. That is when we realized that socialism is what was killing us, our aspirations, our country, our future. And that is when P.V. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh and the World Bank and the IMF unshackled us. At least one foot was unshackled. And we've been hobbling, but at least we've disposed of our crutches. And if you look at all the parameters from 1990 onwards, and health parameters, wealth parameters, it's almost like an incredible jump. I mean, you look at our infant mortality rates that were in 1990, you look at the maternal mortality rates, you look at the rate of hospitalization, you look at the kind of diseases that afflicted Indians. That, to my knowledge, is an incredible sign that we are on the way to progress. Ironically, I say that, or rather sardonically, because in 1990, 70% of the diseases or the diseases that afflicted Indians were communicable diseases, like malaria, tuberculosis, because the constrained environment, poor country, you had the viruses. And 30% were non-communicable diseases, cancer, heart. Now, in 2020, it's completely flipped. Only 30% of the diseases that afflict Indians are communicable diseases. 70% are diabetes, are heart ailments, are asthma. With increasing prosperity, even the diseases that affect us have changed. So a lot has happened. But of course, we are far from, achieving what we could. And there are multiple reasons for that, Pawanji, and that is what makes me angry. So I'm stuck in the middle. I'm like, you think I have 1 foot in a bucket full of boiling water and 1 foot in a bucket full of freezing water, and I feel I'm comfortable. That's the situation of being an Indian.
Thank you. I think you made a valid point. It's good to be impatient. And at the same time, from experience in bureaucracy, politics, parliament, from forums like this, I know that sometimes it takes longer than how you plan it to be, so long as the intent is right. Democracies can be notoriously inefficient in terms of speed, but they provide a much surer foundation ultimately of enduring progress and the unity of the country. As I think Churchill or somebody said, it's the worst form of government except for all the others. However, there is a book that we have in front of us, which is your latest book. And I want to talk a little more of that, Hindus in Hindu Rashtra. Now, this is something where you are very passionate about. A, you question the existence of a secular state, and are we one? B, you think that if we think we are, we have not been secular in action. C, you think that Hindus as the majority community have been not only discriminated against but have faced, to put it in your words, a system of apartheid. I want to begin first by clarifying concepts. In your book you say that secularism is the absolute separation of church and state. I don't believe that was the Indian notion of secularism. That's the French notion.
Frankly, there's no other word other than to describe that we've become, just taken for granted. We're seen as gullible. That if this government constructs a corridor like Kashi corridor, spends 350 crores in constructing it, and we feel proud that here is a Hindutvavadi government that's doing it. That is a half-monthly hundi collection of Tirupati. If Tirupati's revenue was in the control of the temple, it would have constructed hundreds of corridors. The situation right now is so perilous, Pavanji, that the Tamil Nadu government informed the Madras High Court years ago that 11,999 Hindu temples under its control do not have enough money to perform even one puja a day. One puja. So that's the first reason why selectively. Other is the governments have no reason, have no legitimate cause to take over what, according to me, is a private property. If Congress can say that religion is a private affair, then a temple is also a private entity. Why is it controlling temples? Why on earth are people who say religion is an opium of the masses, communists, controlling thousands of temples in Kerala? We've seen the situation, what happened in Sabrimala about 3 weeks ago, where pilgrims were packed like sardines and God knows how, fainted or succumbed, maybe even killed, nobody knows. The state has no business to run it. So one, the state has no business to run it, and B, even if the state is controlling it, why is it controlling selectively?
That's a good reason, but I'm going to ask a supplementary question. Not because I don't disagree with your basic premise, but you will agree with me that Hindu temples, given the nature of Hinduism, I have another book called Being Indian where I discuss this, where in Hinduism there is a great deal of individualism. In other religions, including the Abrahamic faiths, there is a certain notion of collective congregationism. The church you meet Sundays, on mosques you meet on Fridays. In Hinduism, every Hindu goes to the temple, makes a quiet private donation and prays for his personal salvation. So therefore you find that, for instance, in Varanasi, from where I come, the ghats are extremely dirty, but a devout Hindu will walk through the excreta, go into a dirty Ganga, take a dip, come out and walk away, assured of his own salvation. So, where Hinduism is concerned, a great deal of donations are made. They are a majority community, people are rich. Do you think that that amount of wealth, and you just gave an example of Tirupati, and there are even richer temples, if they are left completely in the control of the ruling echelons of those who run the temples without any government supervision, there would be proper use of that money. Recently, and I don't know how much of it is true, but what came to light was that even in the question of the great Ayodhya temple whose Pran Pratishtha we are all waiting for on Monday the 22nd, there was some level of, as they say, ghamla in the purchase and sale of land and so on and so forth, where the management of the temple was involved. So, don't you think the government has a right to keep control on it? Although the government is one of the most inefficient instruments to do it. But is there a case for it or not?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's like saying, just an analogy that, do you think we should have Hafiz Saeed come in to maintain peace? In order to not have corruption, to bring in government, which according to me is possibly, any country's most corrupt institution per se. No, but to come back to that, that's a very serious question. And it has a very simple answer. Much richer than the Hindu temples, let's be honest, if you were to rank them, are, for example, Adani's and Ambani's. Now, if you're worried about Reliance or Adani Corporation being corrupt, do you believe that Mr. Modi should take over Adani's? No pun intended. There's a big wink here. No, but what I'm trying to say is that if a private entity is corrupt, you can prevent cartelization, you can do a host of things in order to prevent corrupt practices in businesses. In fact, one of the reasons why America faced a huge situation where there was a meltdown was because Ronald Reagan removed all those important regulations in his race to be absolutely capitalist. He encouraged crony capitalism. The problem with capitalism is not capitalism. The problem with crony capitalism is cronism. So here we need to identify government need not control a private entity. If we go down that route, then anybody will scare a second person and say, look, the government needs to take control of it because what is going to happen in a few years' time is that this company or this organization or this temple will go corrupt and we can't have that. Well, that applies to everyone, every organization that is corrupt.
The moment the government, if you agree, that the government has regulating powers of extremely rich temples where donations cannot be easily accounted for because they are often in the form of gold, jewelry and so like, they go into a hundi, then you are already admitting the erosion of the principle of the complete separation of the state and the church. Because if government has regulatory powers, it will use those regulatory powers for corrupt reasons as well. So what is the way out?
Okay, so let me answer that. When I mean to say government regulating, I mean to say regulations for private entities. And also let me say government also has a role to be a protector of a just social fabric. For example, and this is a very lively debate which is happening currently. A lot of people, a lot of Hindus in fact are saying that if Hindu temples were to go into the control of Hindus, you might see resurgence of casteism. Now, legitimately they are saying the government should keep control because at least when the government is controlling Hindu temples, the government will make sure that there is no casteist tendency or, Dalits are. So two reasons there. Number one, in South at least, if you talk to T.R. Ramesh and a lot of other activists, 50% of the temples already have non-Brahmins and Brahmins. And secondly, don't governments already have laws that are there to prevent any casteism? Not just in temples, but in private organizations as well. So I'm not saying government controlling or having a role in a temple. I'm saying government already has a set of laws that will make sure, to the extent that it makes sure about every organization in India will not be corrupt. Anything more than that means government coming in and saying, look, we are going to control it. And if you talk to Pavanji Vishnu Jain, let me take the example of not very well known, we know of Ram Janambhoomi, of course, Krishna Janambhoomi. There is also Hanuman Janambhoomi in Karnataka. And you talk to Vishnu, it is an ocean of tears that he has wept over the past 3-4 years. Because the Karnataka government, and I think not the current one, maybe the previous one, I'm not very sure. All the government has to do is to say that the temple is being misgoverned. That is all. It's a bureaucratic order. And the next thing you know, the government controls it. And he's saying for the last so many years, there has not been a single audit done. There is no accounting. So when the government takes over, most of the temples that have been taken over by the government are rife with corruption. It's actually the other way around.
That I concede. That I do concede. And you're right, for the corrupt to try and control corruption is always difficult. But you know, in many senses, Hinduism is a remarkably profound religion, but in its practice is sui generis. For instance, keeping members of its own community at the brunt of exploitation and oppression for millennia. As we know about, you mentioned the Dalits. If there is no government control, you will find that some temples may put restrictions. Even today, you have cases which are reported of Dalits having been killed for having entered a temple or touched purified vessel of a ritual or polluted a Brahmanical thali or had the temerity to ride a horse to take a barat. I mean, these are incidents that still happen. Similarly, you mentioned Sabrimala. If there is a movement that largely is spearheaded by women, that there should be gender equality, would you say that this is a matter for the religion itself to decide, or there should be some state intervention? Like, for instance, the state has perhaps too late in the day intervened in the case of triple talaq recently, and I'm sure it could have done more to make changes in the personal law of other religions. So, do you worry about these concerns?
Absolutely. First of all, another great question. You must stop asking a chain of great questions. I don't know whether I'm giving good answers or not, but fantastic question. Let me answer it in 2 parts. Number one, again, selectivity. You talked about a great example, Sabrimala. Of course you would know this, and I'm not being patronizing at all to anyone, least of all you, Pavanji, but the fact of the matter is that Catholic women cannot be ordained as priests. Now, is that not discrimination? There are many mosques, overwhelmingly, where women are not allowed to enter the sanctum sanctorum.
So we don't need to emulate that practice.
Yes, I'm coming to that. So, one, yes, we don't need to do that. But when you are being critical, and I'm just quoting Dr. Ambedkar here, when Catherine Mayo's book came out on the ills of Hinduism, and Mahatma Gandhi called it the train inspector's report. And Ambedkar was the first one to say that, look, reading that book, one may be under the impression that all the ills of the society are just packed only exclusively in Hinduism. And this is Ambedkar. No one has been more critical of Hinduism than Ambedkar. And he says, nothing can be the truth. If you look at Islam, there are same, if not more ills than there are in Hinduism. So, being selectively trying to, remove discrimination from one society or one community, one religion, I think it's wrong in a society where you've just said the Constitution should treat every religion as equal. If it treats everyone as equal, then it must remove discrimination from every religion. Now let me come to Sabrimala per se. And this is a lot of, I would say, let me just go by fact. So there are multiple Sabrimala temples where women are allowed, Ayappa temples where women are allowed entry only in this, because the deity Lord Ayappa is celibate. The condition that, quote unquote, he did, that women who are menstruating of a certain age should not be allowed. Now, is this discrimination? I believe it is perceived discrimination because there are many Hindu temples where men are not allowed. So, is the Supreme Court saying, well, we must allow men in those temples? So, if you have temples where men are not allowed, Why can't you have temples where one temple where a woman is not allowed? Is that discrimination anymore? So these are the questions that.
It's a good answer, but there are sects where the head priest cannot even see a woman, as if seeing a woman would pollute their purity. I don't want to mention names. One of them, for whom I have otherwise great respect, has a grand temple in Delhi itself. Yes, maybe there are some temples which don't allow men, which don't allow women. But I think that in today's day and time, this state of menstruating women is something that we need to reform. I mean, coming to reform within Hinduism. If you left it to Hinduism itself, it should have reformed itself long ago. By the way, Veer Savarkar, you mentioned Ambedkar, the biggest voice of social reform in Hinduism, and the same category as Dr. Ambedkar and Jyotibai Phule. Jyoti Phule was Veer Savarkar, who spoke about, he was also, by the way, an atheist. He never joined the RSS. He was a great patriot and revolutionary. He went to jail for 11.5 years, and when some members of the Congress party tried to ridicule him, I have publicly on television and in my columns said, this is rubbish. Mrs. Indira Gandhi issued a stamp to honor his patriotism and sacrifice. But he wrote far more on reform in Hinduism. He called them Saat Pidiyaan, 7 reforms. Beti Bandi, Vyavasay Bandi, Roti Bandi, Sparsh Bandi. All of these ills of untouchability, caste discrimination, ban on interfaith marriage, interdining, occupational continuity irrespective of choice. Veer Savarkar has written greatly on it. For a party which is now in power, which seeks to speak for what is good for Hindus, and I'm sure it's doing much that is good for Hindus, but according to you, not enough. These are the areas where Hinduism should actually revive itself. And left to itself, it would do nothing. Even the government has to intervene to ensure equality within Hinduism for members of the Hindu faith itself. What do we do about that?
Yeah, and again, 5th time in a row, great question. But at the risk of repeating myself, I must say this. And I've said this before, that in Hinduism, I believe, religion is an offshoot of a way of life. Whereas in Islam, way of life is an offshoot of religion. So it follows that over millennia, ways of life changes. So it is Hinduism that is more amenable to change, accumulates helpful mutations. What Hindus were doing 1,000 years ago, they say, well, you're not going to do this. So ironically, it is Hinduism where whatever, and of course, you are reticent about the way, the speed of reforms. I agree with you. But I have no skin in the game because I am not a practicing Hindu, I am a civilizational Hindu. Yes, reform must be there, equality must be there. Of course, these are legitimate causes that one doesn't even need to think about. But if at all there has been reform in any religion, it has been in Hinduism. You look at what Hindus were practicing 500, 600 years ago. And again, I stress the speed of reform is something that I agree with you on.
But I'm just going to cut you short in order to make it more animated. Go 100 kilometers out of Delhi. There are the Kham Panchayats, which are a law unto themselves in the name of Hinduism, where they decide which man and which woman will marry. I mean, I'm saying that such a great religion, so profound in its vision, where the notion of Brahm is all-pervasive cosmic consciousness which is in you and me and in everything else, has created such a rigid hierarchy. And we are talking about discrimination by outsiders without looking inwards to see what we need to change about ourselves. in the interest of the majority of Hindus.
This is a very important point. And I stressed it again and again that I am for every reform being done as fast as possible in any domain. If that domain is Hinduism, yes. But Pawanji, you also would agree, because you've been in that field where, thankfully, I have not been in politics.
Don't talk of it in the past.
Sorry. Never. Never say never, of course. But the fact of the matter is that it is the politicians, if there's been any, a class that has perpetuated this caste divide. That, I mean, I don't even need to name politicians who've actually trumpeted the existence of Khaf Panchayat, Congress politicians. Many of them are today seen as forward-looking, progressive, highly educated. They voted for Khap Panchayats. So
Ram Raveen has just got a 50-day parole again,
right,
after rape and murder. So politics and religion are an emotive issue which will at some point go together or not.
300 million Indians would be forced women not to marry anyone outside their religion, or Quran if menstruating. All those ills that we take that you want to.
So I get your
How
point.
would you feel?
Are saying that if there has been any reform, like the Hindu Personal Law Code, which came in 1952, which singled out Hinduism for reform but left the others out, I agree with you. It's one of the reasons for the angst among Hindus. Among many others, Dr. Ambedkar, even before the independence movement, opposed Mahatma Gandhiji's support for the Khilafat movement. He said, why should India support a pan-Islamist movement, especially when the Khilafat has been abolished in Turkey itself? Kamal Atatürk has come and we are supporting a Khilafat movement. That's a fair criticism. Gandhiji did it in order to preserve Hindu-Muslim unity to fight a common enemy, which is the British. That's a different matter. But my point is that even though we have tried to reform Hinduism, the truth is that in practice, Hinduism is still very far from basic reforms like gender equality, which Hinduism in its profound philosophy guarantees. There are texts which have said that the Devi, and I quote them in my book, is higher than even the consort with which she should. We worship Shakti in deity terms and subordinate women in actual life. It is happening. So that apart, there is a pace of reform. But time being short, I want to touch on two other questions. One is the Uniform Civil Code, about which also you write strongly. Why do you think that a political party in power for 10 years, and I'm not using this as a critique of that party, but I'm pointing towards the complexity of the issue of a Uniform Civil Code. It has been in the manifesto all along, in that of other parties too. This party has been in power, the BJP and the NDA, with an absolute majority for the last 10 years. Why have they not brought a draft of the Uniform Civil Code before Parliament?
Yeah, and I think you must ask this question to, the high and mighty in BJP when you join the party very soon. But do we have a scoop here, Pawanji? Do we have a scoop here?
No, I wish I have not been invited.
No, you're absolutely right. This is another matter where I myself personally and everyone who loves the country, who wants the country to progress in terms of social equality, wanted this government to do. It's been 10 years. So it has we were talking of Hinduism reforms being a pace of their own. This party is working on a pace of its own. God knows what,
Also, Anand, I happened to be a member of Parliament when when the Uniform Civil Code, the government was saying we are going to bring a draft but never brought it. And just before that, the National Law Commission sent a circular to all presidents of political parties and chief ministers to elicit their views. At that time, I was a cabinet minister in Bihar as advisor to a once great politician with potential called Nitish Kumar. So,
Patliputra.
exactly. He failed himself and he disappointed me, and finally I was expelled from the party for my opposition on principle to certain things. However, that is a private matter. I have cordial relations at a personal level with him. But in his reply, he wrote that a uniform civil code is a desirable thing. And I can understand the predicament of the present government. But a uniform civil code means that not only the Muslims, all other religious denominations and communities must agree upon what they are willing to jettison from their religious practice in order to adopt something that is uniformly applicable to all. I can assure you one thing, and I'll tell you that's the reason why this government has not brought it, and previous governments have not. The largest number of changes will be made in Hinduism itself. I am not giving the literal meaning. For instance, in a Hindu religious marriage, although the symbolic meaning of it is different, the women here must know there is a ceremony of Kanyadan, sanctified from the past and perhaps for important philosophical, metaphysical reasons. But today's women are asking, they are not commodities, there is a relationship of equality. What is this Kanya Dan? Why not? What is the opposite of Kanya? Purushna. Pandits and those who control Hinduism may not agree. It's a very, very complex question. Goan Christians have their own practice. Northeast, there are different practices. Given the diversity of this country and undoubtedly with an underlying unity, there are different practices. To create a uniform civil code is desirable, but it is practically one of the most difficult things to do.
Now, let me answer it in two parts, because which is a genuine conundrum, and will of course attack the speed with which you would want the UCC implemented, because you can immediately see that a lot of religions, including people who are Hindus, would say we are definitely against this, bringing this reform. Even though the concept, the philosophical concept of Kanyadan, many people are at variance to what you've suggested, but that's another matter. I'm not an expert in that. The two reasons that I gave is, whenever you're in conundrum, and I find this as a Brahmastra, stick to what the science tells you. And it is a pity that, of course you may say I'm partial and I'm a Darwinian atheist, that if there is one book that everyone should read other than or except or in lieu of religious scriptures, it should be Darwin's Origin of the Species. The world will be a much safer and better place. And how do I bring it to the UCC? I'll give you two stark examples. Whenever there is discrimination in your face, which can materialize or manifest itself physically, which is much more harmful, or monetarily, I think the solution is not to talk about religion at all. For example, in Islam, it is written in the Quran that the son will get twice as much share of inheritance as the daughter. Now that is monetarily not good or unequal for the daughter. So that is one reform that even people in Islam or the so-called feminists who fight for equality should go ahead and fight. I've never seen them talking about Muslim women not being asked to follow.
On the other hand, a Muslim marriage is a contract between equals.
Right.
It's a qararnama, whereas a Hindu marriage is not.
Yeah, I'm talking of inheritance. But the second more important and troubling matter is that very recently the Gujarat High Court allowed a Muslim man, who is probably 40 years, to marry a Muslim child, I would say, who was 12 years old, because the religion allows it. That is in blatant violation of the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. But we allow
That
this.
would be applicable to Muslims, child marriage.
I'm talking about Muslims, yes. But it is not. So the Gujarat High Court gave the yes signal for the 12-year-old because she's reached puberty. In Islam, if you reach puberty, you can marry. Now, that will do untold damage physically, medically, to a human being. We cannot have that in a civilized, progressive state. So that is my argument. Whenever you stuck with, oh, this would be very difficult for a particular sect or a religion
Fair
to do,
enough.
stick to science.
I take your point. Although child marriage is a rampant evil in Hinduism also. But we've discussed the uniform
It's not legally sanctioned.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But the practice is so pervasive that it still goes on without being legally.
Like corruption.
Now, coming, because I think we have 5 minutes or more, we've overrun time. But I'll try to finish in 3 or 4 minutes. Places of Worship Act. You are very critical of it, and perhaps you're right. As I said, there has to be some correction of the narrative in history and rectification of past wrongs. At the same time, if there are no limits put to excavating the acrimonies of the past, as Mohan Bhagwat ji said, we'll start digging every mosque in the country to find a temple under it. Oh, we are running out of time. Quickly, give me a quick answer that don't you think that while the act itself perhaps could be modified to include 2 more temples, if you don't have any limitation to where you end the excavation of the past in today's time, when people want to get on with their lives, they don't want endemic instability that even will affect economic growth. They want their children to go to school, get jobs, move on. We are not a country. There are extremists in all religions.
So first of all, on the day Dr. Mohan Bhagwat said that, I disagreed with him publicly a few hours later, saying that I vehemently disagree with what he said. It is unacceptable what he said. If we have to dig any place of worship, tens of thousands of them, to find legitimate shivlings or any other idols, we must do it. It is a civilizational cause, but that is away from the Place of Worship Act, the objection to the act itself, because the hallmark of democracy, if there is only one, it is that any person should be allowed to seek justice, to go to the court. That is what, for me, signals a democratic country. And a Places of Worship Act bars Hindus to go even approach the court. Forget about the verdict, it may go against them or for them, like the Ayodhya verdict, it may have gone against them. But at least in this, they were allowed to go to the court and approach and say, my lord, please adjudicate on this matter. Here the Hindus can't even do that. And the irony, Pavanji, is that when people accuse Hindus of violating the Place of Worship Act or in danger of violation, ironically, it is the Place of Worship Act has been violated against the Hindus. Specifically in the case of Gyan Vyapi, the Vyas Parivar has been barred from worshipping what they were worshipping inside the Gyan Vyapi mosque for decades. The sacred people tree has been cut, Hanuman Murtis have been removed there. So it is the Place of Worship Act which ordains that after 15th August 1947, you cannot change the religious structure of the place of worship. That has been changed against the Hindus. So there is violation that has happened of POW against the Hindus, but barring that, you tell me, Pavanji, why cannot a citizen of a republic even approach the court? It doesn't matter what the court will decide. Approach the court to demand justice, to correct a historical injustice. Are we not in a situation where
I agree, because we are running out of time. And I must end here by asking a last question, which you will answer in precisely 1 minute. Yes, if that is your belief, instead of reaching Amrit Kal by 2047, we will be digging all over India to recover our civilization. But that apart, do you think that while injustice may have been done in many cases with Hindus in the past, which I chronicle myself, somewhere the pendulum is swinging to the other side, although never enough according to you, where we are now pursuing a Hindu majoritarian agenda, sometimes leading to a sense of perception of the marginalization of minorities.
Minute. So, all right, yes. I completely dismiss this notion that we are living in a majoritarian state or we are pursuing a majoritarian agenda. The most sacred of relics from the birthplace of Lord Krishna, his idols were broken up by Aurangzeb, were taken to Agra, were put under the steps of the Jahanara Mosque for 500 years. Millions of feet have been treading on them. Do you think Hindus still don't have a right to at least go to the court to say, demand, my lord, can we please have those idols back?
No, but let's move beyond. I'm talking about general principle.
But how is this majoritarianism?
No. I'm
Justice.
saying that you have a cabinet today, a parliament of the ruling party, but there's not a single representation of the minority. Maybe it's right. I'm not going into it on merit. But there is a perception, we'll have to leave it here.
10 seconds, 30 seconds.
It's like a TV debate.
30 seconds. 30 seconds, yes. Because this question was asked of me and I gave an answer which kind of went viral because I asked the Congress leader, do you think the Congress is against homosexuals? There are 10% of Indian population is homosexual, if you go scientifically. He said, no. And I said, who is the representation of homosexuals in your party or in parliament? By that logic, if you don't have any Muslim there, are you against Muslims? So you must be against homosexuals.
How do you know there are no homosexuals in the Congress party? Unless you've done a
30
survey.
seconds are over now.
Unless you've done a survey. Anyway, I think it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anand. You revealed new details about the Congress party. And I thank you. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan and Pawan Verma ji. This was Hindus in Hindu Rashtra, ladies and gentlemen. Can we have a round of applause for the authors? Anand has always been, stealing hearts of the audiences across the country. And I would request Mr. Bharti Bhargava and Pallavi to please come and present a small moment of token of mementos to our authors on the stage. So these are small. गले भी मिल लीजिए सर. I hope there's a message in this, Anand bhai. I hope you are changing the hearts of people. धर्म नहीं तो दिल्ली परिवर्तन कर देते हैं. And I'll request Manoj ji to come from on behalf of Amul to also present a small token. Right? Manoj ji from Amul, can we have a round of applause for him? So he's all the way from, Amul brand. Yeah. So, not to forget, I'll request the audience to stay back because there's an amazing session coming by Mr. Vipul Rikhi on Drunk on Love, the live vision and songs of Kabir. He'll also do some live performance. It's going to be very, very interesting. And thank you once again, Dr. Anand Ranganathan and Pawan Verma ji. You guys have always been amazing. Thank you so much.
About the book.
And friends, we have book signing for Dr. Anand Ranganathan stage. You just take the steps. And friends, we also have Mr. Aditya Raj, who's also the editor of TV9. He's here. Thank you. And he'll be there for another amazing session with Rahul Shivshankar and Siddharth Talya on a book on Prime Minister Modi and beyond. So can we have a round of applause for Mr. Kaul? He's highly decorated journalist, that's what his profile says. Thank you, Aditya, for being here. And he said that he wanted to be with him. Did you meet Anand? Didi, Anand se milwai. Anand se. So, gentlemen, we have another rock star on the stage. You can see that. Sarahak, what is that song called? And kind of a superstar here, rock star. Is going to talk about the philosophy and the song and the music of Sant Kabir. And we have in conversation with Mr. Vipul Rikhi, Dr. Amna Mirza. Amna is a dear friend and she's also been a great support to the Delhi Literature Festival over the years. And she's also curated some of the sessions and she's a professor at the Delhi University.
Thank you.
And she has been recently acknowledged by the government as well. So thank you both of you for being here today. And I'll request Mr. Vipul Rikhi, or I would say Vipul, because he came all the way from Goa and his book on Sant Kabir is already a bestseller. So thank you Vipul again for being here at the Delhi Literature Festival. और मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है खास करके हमारे जो वॉलंटियर्स हैं पीछे, जितने भी लोग बाहर पीछे खड़े हैं, असीम यू विल हैव टू हेल्प अस, अथर यू नीड टू हेल्प अस, गेट ऑल द पीपल स्टैंडिंग आउटसाइड बैक इन द एम्फी थिएटर प्लीज.
धन्यवाद अजय जी. फर्स्ट वंस अगेन दिल्ली साहित्य उत्सव में आप सबका स्वागत है. क्योंकि आज बात विपुल रिखी जी के साथ होने वाली है, तो ये जो संवाद है ये अंग्रेजी और हिंदी दोनों में होने वाला है. क्या आप हमारे साथ हैं इस बात पर? तो आपकी तालियां कहाँ हैं? बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. नमस्कार, प्रणाम, आदाब, ग्रीटिंग्स, गुड इवनिंग everyone. Welcome to this very interesting session that I promise you that's going to be there at the 12th edition of Delhi Literature Festival. And yes, today in this session we're going to be, going beautiful book, and I love the life, vision and songs of Kabir. This has been published by HarperCollins India and written by the very talented singer, writer Vipul Rikhi ji. तालियां हो सकती है. विपुल सीधा गोवा से आए हैं दिल्ली के लिए यार. शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. विपुल परिचय की तो कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. विपुल डज नॉट नीड एनी इंट्रोडक्शन. स्टिल एज अ मॉडरेटर अपनी मैं पूरी जिम्मेदारी के साथ विपुल को हम सब के बीच इंट्रोड्यूस करती हूँ. विपुल जी, he is a wonderful author of 2012 Nights, fellow for literature at Academy in Germany, and of course his work with Kabir project, which involves writing, research, curations amongst others. और जब मैं आज इस सेशन के बारे में बात कर रही थी, हाय मीनू जी, तो मैंने विपुल से वादा लिया है जो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहती हूँ कि ये संवाद होगा और इस संवाद में बातचीत के साथ साथ संगीत भी होगी. विपुल से जो भी हम सवाल या जो भी मंथन करने वाले हैं वो कहते हैं वो उसका जवाब वर्ड्स, शब्द के साथ साथ स्वर और ध्वनि में भी होने वाला है. तो आइए, let's get together for this very interesting session with words, with ideas, with music, with philosophy, spirituality and more, drunk on love, the life, vision and songs of Kabir. विपुल, सबसे पहले पुनः एक बार आपका स्वागत है दिल्ली साहित्य महोत्सव में. This is our 12th edition and you can see that how interesting people, how people are waiting for your sessions. विपुल, to begin with, शुरू करें संवाद. चलिए, अब विद द कंसेंट ऑफ आवर ऑथर, उनकी मर्जी के साथ, अनुमति के साथ आइए सत्र में बातचीत की शुरुआत करते हैं. जब हम विपुल की किताब को देखते हैं, when we try to look into this world, in his work, विपुल गुरु, सहज, शून्य, राम, इस सारी संकल्पना, इस सारे विचारों के साथ आपकी किताब ड्रंक ऑन लव में आता है. With this, let's open up. कबीर कौन है विपुल के लिए? What is the bigger picture, the message of Kabir, Saint Kabir, that is for Vipul?
Thank you, Amna, for that very enthusiastic introduction. Good evening, everyone. Kabir, for me, is a stream, एक धारा है जो साल से ज़्यादा से बहती आ रही है इस देश में. और उनके गाने, उनके दोहे, उनके भजन आज भी लोग गाते हैं. Not because they were written down, but because people sing them. So it's an oral tradition where people sing his songs and people listen to his songs. And this tradition has passed from one person to another person, from one generation to another generation, for over 500 years. That's something very remarkable. और अभी भी ऐसे कई भजन हैं जो लिखने में नहीं आए हैं, सिर्फ गाए जाते हैं. तो ये एक धारा है जो बहती जा रही है और उसमें ये इट्स सच एन ओपन ट्रेडिशन that people feel free to contribute. तो आप और हम भी एक भजन लिख सकते हैं और कहेंगे कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधो, तो हो सकता है वो भी कबीर भजन बन जाए. तो इट्स सच एन ओपन ट्रेडिशन दैट मैनी पीपल हैव कंट्रीब्यूटेड. और ऐसे ऐसे कबीर भजन भी हैं जिसमें गन्स हैं, पिस्तौल है, तोप है, रेलवे टिकट कलेक्टर है, सब कुछ है. वो ऑब्वियसली बाद में जुड़े हैं, बट दे आर ऑल पार्ट ऑफ द ट्रेडिशन.
तो कबीर एक व्यापक विचार है, एक ऐसा विचार है जिसमें सभी का समन्वय है. कबीर इज अ ब्यूटीफुल इंक्लूसिव आइडिया. विपुल, इसको कुछ गाकर जरा हमें बताएं, क्योंकि अब देखिए सुर से सुर, लय से लय मिल चुका है. अब संवाद की जो यात्रा है इसको और सुंदर बनाना है. सो हाउ डू यू रियली कैप्चर द मैग्नेमिटी ऑफ सेंट कबीर?
मैं आपके साथ एक दो भजन शेयर करता हूँ. आपको तंबूरा सुनाई दे रहा है?
ये आपको तंबूरा सुनाई दे रहा है, और साथ साथ थोड़ा सा तालियों का भी यदि उपयोग हो जाए.
तो ये जो किताब है इसका टाइटल है ड्रंक ऑन लव. तो एक भजन है कबीर का, उसमें कहते हैं हमन है इश्क मस्ताना हमन को होशियारी के. जब मैं इश्क में मस्त हो गया, when I've got drunk on love, what have I got to do with being clever or being smart? रहें आज़ाद या जग से हम दुनिया से हारी के. आई एम फ्री इन दिस वर्ल्ड. अब मुझे मतलब की यारी से, दुनियादारी से क्या लेना देना. सो ही इज़ गॉन बियॉन्ड ऑल दीज यूजुअल कैलकुलेशंस दैट वी लिव इन. जो पिछड़े हैं प्यारे से दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हमने हमन को इंतजारी किया. माई बिलवेड माई ट्रूथ इज इन साइड मी, सो आई डोंट वॉन्डर फ्रॉम प्लेस टू प्लेस लुकिंग सर्चिंग. इन दी एंड ही सेज कबीरा इश्क का माता दुई को दूर कर दिल से. कबीर इश्क में मस्त हो गए. ही गॉट ड्रंक ऑन लव, बट हाउ? बाय रिमूविंग द फीलिंग ऑफ ड्युअलिटी फ्रॉम हिज हार्ट. टू, सेपरेशन. अभी हमने देखा बहुत सारी सेपरेशन हैं हमारे सिविलाइजेशन में, हिंदू और मुस्लिम, ऊंची जात और नीची जात, मेल फीमेल, ऑडियंस, adult, rich and poor, east and west. All these divisions which divide us, which separate us from each other. When he went beyond them, that's when he got drunk on love. जो चलना राह नाजुक है हमन सिर बोझ भारी है. बहुत नाजुक रास्ता है. कौन सा रास्ता? इश्क का रास्ता. तो इस पे सर भारी करके, if you want to walk on this path, you have to be light, you have to be free. मस्ताना हमन को होशियारी क्या. रहे आजाद यहाँ जग से, रहे आजाद यहाँ जग से, रहे आजाद यहाँ जग से हमन दुनिया से यारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना हमन को होशियारी क्या. फील फ्री टू क्लैप अलोंग. थोड़ी गर्मी भी आएगी. जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हमने, हमारा यार है हमने, हमको इंतजारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना हमन को होशियारी क्या. आजाद या जग से रहे, आजाद या जग से रहे, आजाद या जग से हमन दुनिया से आई क्या, हमन इश्क मस्ताना। कबीरा इश्क का माता तू को दूर कर दिल से, कबीरा इश्क का माता तू ही को दूर कर दिल से, जो चलना राह नाजुक है, जो चलना राह नाजुक है, हमन से बोझ भारी क्या, हमन है इश्क मस्ताना। अमन को होशियारी क्या, रहे आजाद या जग से, आजाद या जग से, आजाद या जग से हमन दुनिया से हारी क्या, हम इश्क मस्ताना। हमन को होशियारी क्या, हमन है इश्क मस्ताना।
बहुत सुंदर, बहुत ही सुंदर। जब हम विपुल जी की किताब को देखते हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स ही इज ट्राइंग टू मेक द वर्ड्स, द विजन ऑफ सेंट कबीर वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग फॉर ऑल ऑडियंसेस। ना काहू से दोस्ती, ना काहू से बैर। यू नो व्हेन यू ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कबीर, जो कि अगर देखा जाए, जो कहा जाता है कि लाइब्रेरी में कुछ किताबें हैं उन तक सीमित था, यू आर ट्राइंग टू गिव कबीर अ वेरी पीपल सेंट्रिक पर्सपेक्टिव। चाहे मैं जीवन को देखूं, प्रेम को देखूं, यथार्थ को समझूं, एवरीवेयर यू आर ट्राइंग टू रिलेट द विजन, द मैसेज ऑफ सेंट कबीर थ्रू अ पीपल सेंट्रिक पर्सपेक्टिव। थोड़ा सा डाइग्रेस करूंगी। यदि हम G20 की ओर, अभी शिखर सम्मेलन जो हुआ था न्यू दिल्ली में, वहां पर भी यही विचार है कि वैश्वीकरण लेकिन विद ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अप्रोच। विपुल जी, जो आप यू नो हाउ यू ट्राई टू टैप ऑन द वर्क ऑफ अ वेरी फेमस इंडियन सेंट विद अ ग्लोबल रियलिटी, टेल मी समथिंग, व्हाट वाज द स्ट्रैटेजी, हाउ इंटरेस्टिंग, हाउ एक्साइटिंग वाज दैट टू एक्चुअली ब्रिंग द थिंकर टुवर्ड्स अ पीपल सेंट्रिक knowledge?
See, Kabir was always a people's person. He was an ordinary man, very humble man. He was not a scholar, he was not a very high kind of man. He was a weaver, बुनकर थे। बनारस में रहते थे, कपड़ा बुनते थे। And he was a so-called low caste man, and he refers to his own jati a lot. And he makes fun of all this caste system. He makes fun of religious division. He attacks all these things. But at the same time, he's a very ordinary person with a wife, children, who lives an ordinary life, trying to make a living, trying to feed his family. So, वो जो भाषा भी यूज़ करते हैं तो वो हर रोज़मर्रा की भाषा है। वो ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई बहुत हाईफालूटिन लैंग्वेज यूज़ कर रहे हैं। So the examples that he gives are very common. ये तन काचा कुंभ दे, ये फिरे के साथ, ठपका लागा फूटी गया, कछु नहीं आया, कच्चा घड़ा है, it's like a fragile clay pot. So all these examples, all this poetry comes from life, and that's why people of this country have related to it for over 500 years.
And plus, yes, your book is indeed, doing very well out there. Now, when you are trying to present the sense that Kabir belongs to everyone, somewhere there is also this, trying to understand love, life, knowledge, compassion through a new perspective. क्योंकि अगर आज के जीवन में हम प्रेम की बात करें तो प्रेम पूरा मोनेटाइज हो गया है, कुछ दिन तक सीमित हो गया है। या जैसे पहले पर्व होते थे तो हम खूब एक दूसरे के पास जाकर वी यूज्ड टू गो फॉरवर्ड एंड ग्रीट, बट टुडे आज तकनीक का ज़माना है तो सारी चीज़ें कहाँ सीमित हो गई हैं? व्हाट्सएप पर आपने संवाद को सीमित कर दिया है। बट हियर इज विपुल, एंड जब आप इस किताब को पढ़ते हैं तो वो कबीर के माध्यम से प्यार की, जीवन की, प्रेम की एक बड़ी व्यापक डेफिनेशन देते हैं। आई रियली वांट यू टू ड्वेल ऑन दैट कि आपने प्रेम को इतना सरल और एक जटिल प्रेम को सरल कैसे बनाया, और लेकिन गाकर बताएंगे, बिकॉज यू रियली हैव टू सी वन ऑफ हिज इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर्स ऑन लव, लाइफ एंड रियलिटीज। विपुल जी,
देखिए, प्रेम तो सरल ही होता है हमने उसको
आजकल इंस्टाग्राम की दुनिया में और हैशटैग की दुनिया में विपुल जी, यहाँ मैं थोड़ा सा कहूँगी कि कहीं ना कहीं चीज़ें जटिल हो गई हैं। आप कितने अच्छे हैं, आप क्या संवाद करते हैं, उससे परिभाषित है कि कितने लाइक्स हैं उस पर। Somewhere don't you think that in this consumerist world, जो सुंदरता आपने प्रेम की व अन्य भाव की यहाँ इस किताब में लेकर आई वो मोनेटाइज हो।
So Kabir talks about love and all, and he says, for example, प्रेम सब कोई कहे, प्रेम ना जीने कोई। हर कोई प्रेम की बात करता है, कोई पहचानता नहीं है क्या। अघट प्रेम पिंजर बसे, प्रेम कहा वे सोए। जो घटता बढ़ता नहीं है कि अगर स्थिति अनुकूल है तो हमारा बहुत प्रेम है और प्रतिकूल है तो सब प्रेम गायब होगा एक सेकेंड में। When things are going well, we are very loving people, and things get a little rough, and all our love vanishes like this. So ये डामाडोल तरह का जो प्रेम है वो प्रेम नहीं है। Love, real love is that which belongs to you. It is inside you, and then you can express it in any circumstance, in any context, in any situation, which is what he also tried to do in his own life. And that is actually when we cultivate that state of love within us, it flows out. It's a natural flow.
तो ये जो प्रेम का जो आप प्रवाह की बात कर रहे हैं, फ्लो की बात कर रहे हैं, मैं आपसे एक बार फिर अनुरोध करूंगी, जो सुंदर आपने यहाँ पे दोहा लिखा है इसको थोड़ा गा कर बताएं। इन दिस वेरी ब्यूटीफुल चैप्टर ऑन लाइफ इन द वर्ल्ड, विपुल जी एक्चुअली present some very important dohas of Saint Kabir. This body, a tampura, made of the 5 elements, strung on the 9 harmonies. तो देखिए जीवन में संगीत की तरह एक संवाद है, एक समन्वय है, और कहीं ना कहीं हम भूल जाते हैं इस समन्वय, इस संवाद को पहचानना। विपुल जी प्लीज। और आप लोग की तालियां नहीं है, देखिए इतना सुंदर, इतनी गहरी गहरी बातें विपुल जी हमारे साथ साझा कर रहे हैं।
सबकी ताली की जरूरत नहीं है। I think it's everyone's attention is enough. The song that I'm going to share is it's a very well-known song of Kabir. In this song, he talks in the voice of the divine. Ultimately, love is the divine. उसको आप किसी भी नाम से पुकारें, आप उसे राम के नाम से पुकारें, या रहीम के नाम से पुकारें, या प्रेम के नाम से पुकारें, या इश्क के नाम से पुकारें. It's the same force which sustains the whole universe. That's what it says. So in this very well-known song of Kabir, he says, "Moko kahan dhoonde re bande, main to tere paas." Right? I am with you. I am always with you. Where do you keep looking for me? ना तीरथ में, ना मूरत में, ना एकांत निवास में, ना मैं मंदिर में, ना मैं मस्जिद में, ना काबे कैलाश में. Not confined to any one place or spot. It is everywhere. This state of love is everywhere, in everything. ना मैं जप में, ना मैं तप में, ना व्रत उपास में, not in any special kind of practice. ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, नहीं योग संन्यास में. खोजी होए तुरंत मिल जाऊं, कैसे? एक पल की तलाश में. If you really look for it, you can find it in 1 second. कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधो, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास. If you feel like, please feel free to sing along, clap along, dance along.
Absolutely. जो आस्था होती है, जो प्रेम होता है, जो किसी बाधा में नहीं होता, उसमें बहुत शक्ति होती है.
मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. मोको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में. ना तीरथ में, ना मूरत में, ना एकांत निवास में, ना मैं मंदिर में, ना मैं मस्जिद में, ना काबे कैलाश में. ना तीरथ में ना मूरत में ना एकांत निवास में, ना मैं मंदिर में ना मैं मस्जिद में, ना कभी के आश में, ना मैं मंदिर में ना मैं मस्जिद में, ना कभी के आश में। को कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में, को कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। ना मैं जप में ना मैं तप में, ना व्रत उपवास में, ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, नहीं योग संन्यास में। ना मैं जप में ना मैं तप में, ना व्रत उपवास में, ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, नहीं योग संन्यास में। ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, नहीं योग संन्यास में। को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में, को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। खोजी होए तुरंत मिल जाऊं, एक पल की तलाश में, कहत कबीर सुनो भाई सालो, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास में। खोजी होए तुरंत मिल जाऊं, एक पल की तलाश में, कहत कबीर सुनो भाई सालो, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास में। कहत कबीर सुनो भाई सालो, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास में। को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में, को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में। को कहाँ तू ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में।
Beautiful. बहुत सुंदर विपुल जी. विपुल जी, when you're trying to engage with the dohas, with the iconic vision of Saint Kabir, you know, जब मैं किताब पढ़ रही थी, the book gives you a strength. ये आपको एक हिम्मत देती है, एक ताकत देती है कि जो आपके अंदर का जो विश्वास है, वो सर्वश्रेष्ठ है. और यही विश्वास आपको प्रेम के, आस्था के रास्ते पे और मजबूत रखता है. As we read, बहुत ही सुंदर, Vipul ji has selected some iconic songs of Kabir, and one of the most जो मुझे बहुत बेहतरीन प्यारा लगा, I'm drunk on love. What's the need of cleverness? I'm free in this world. What's the need of worldliness? जब आप इस iconic song को पढ़ते हैं, तो जीवन की जो भागदौड़ है और के अंदर जो व्यक्ति पूरा लुप्त हो गया है, you try to Kabir, what is this work imparts to you as a person?
Kabir has a lot of strength to give us because he says that everything is within us. Tharo Ram hirde mein bahar kyun atke? So everything that we are looking for outside, whether it is love, whether it is God, whether it is success, whether it is fulfillment, these things he says start from within. So when we start to look within ourselves, then we find that we don't need to depend on circumstances, and in fact we are able to give. हम क्या है, हम मांगते रहते हैं. सारा जग भिखारी, जग मांगन हारा, गुरु समदाता कोई नहीं. That's what Kabir says. तो हम सब मांगने वाले हैं, हमें चाहिए, ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए. कबीर says आप देने वाले बन सकते हैं क्योंकि आपके अंदर अपार धन है. You have infinite treasures inside of you. Now when you have infinite treasures inside of you, then you are a rich person, right? And you are a strong person, because wealth brings strength. ये तो हम दुनिया में भी हम समझते हैं. But ये जो धन है, राम रतन धन कहते हैं उसको, प्रेम धन कहते हैं, किसी भी नाम से आप उसे पुकारें. That treasure, that wealth, gives you so much strength. Then instead of needing from other people, trying to exploit other people, trying to get from other people, you start giving and sharing. And this is what love is. Love gives and love shares. Love is not demanding and expecting and wanting someone to do things for you. That is not love. Love is the ability to give. और जिसके पास होता है वही दे सकता है.
Once again, विपुल जी की जो बातें होती हैं वो इतनी गहरी होती हैं. विपुल जी, when one tries to pose in the text, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि बिल्कुल उन्होंने बिल्कुल शब्दों के साथ संवाद करके हमें किताब दे दी है. किताब में भी कई बहुत सारी गहरी पहेली हैं. Because when you go through the text, even Kabir has been understood in a very deeper sense. And again, that deeper sense is how do I really understand my individuality. Allow me to quote here that how you really present, the moon can't be seen moving, the creeper can't be seen growing, the seeker can't be seen meditating, this is nature's way. अब हम जब इस यथार्थ की ओर से हटकर इस आदर्श पर चलते हैं.
कबीर also संसार छोड़ के कहीं भागने गए. In fact, he makes fun of the. He also had a night. पान फूल छेड़े नहीं पर रहे बाग के माही. बाग छोड़ के नहीं जाना आपको, इस संसार में ही रहना है, इन रिश्तों नातों के साथ ही रहना, with all these relationships. So he doesn't suggest running away. And of course the usual what you are saying is it practical? Yeah. That's what you are saying. So ये practicality वाला तो हम बचपन से सुनते आते हैं. हमारे all our middle class parents are all forever telling us this is not practical, that is not practical. Don't do poetry, it's not practical. Don't go into music, it's not practical. And yet here we are sitting today with poetry and music, and we are able to be in this world. When you do it, it becomes practical. What is practical? Practical is practice. What you practice becomes practical. So when you say love is not practical, that means you don't practice it. When you practice love, it becomes practical. Kabir practiced love. To the extent in my own life that I have practiced or been able to practice love, I can tell you it is the most practical thing. Let me give you an example. Everyone knows about relationships, how difficult they are. Yeah? Our most intimate relationships are the most difficult things in our lives. Whether with our children, with our parents, with our partners. Right? Now, you say this is not practical. But when you go inside and find love within yourself, these things become the most practical because your relationships improve. Your relationships with your intimate ones improve. Your relationships with your neighbors improve. And that is what is the whole world is made up only of these relationships. जो हमको लगता है संसार एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है वो नहीं है. It's only all these relationships which make up this society. So we talk about society in the abstract, but actually what society is social interactions between individuals. When we change those things, society changes. That's how society changes. That's why now you can see people, now parents are proud if their child goes into, this is just an example, if your child goes into art or music, now parents, because this has changed and it has become practical. So the more we practice something, the more it becomes practical. But it's up to you. Kabir says, Kabira khada bazaar mein, liye lukathi haath, jo ghar ja rahe apna, chalo hamare saath. So Kabir is standing in the middle of the market and he's inviting you not to be a follower. वो ये नहीं कह रहे Instagram पे मुझे आप follow करें. He is not interested in how many followers I have in Instagram. He's saying, come and walk with me. चलो हमारे साथ. But first you have to burn your house down. अपना घर जला दो और फिर चलो हमारे साथ. ये घर जलाने का क्या मतलब है? All these ego attachments, pride, which divide us from each other. जब ये सब जल जाता है, then our relationships, our being in the world becomes सहज. सहज सहज सब कोई कहे, सहज न चीने कोई. हर कोई सहज की बात करता है, पहचानता नहीं. Typical Kabir is very confident. मुझे पता है और किसी को नहीं पता। जिनको सहजे हरि मिले सहज कही जे सोई, जिसको ये हरि या राम या प्रेम या इश्क सहज अपने अंदर मिल गया, वो सहज बन जाता है। एंड टू बी सहज, टू बी spontaneous, to be resolved is the most practical thing in the world.
वेरी वेल सेड। जीवन में अहंकार, लालच, कहीं ना कहीं इसको त्याग कर मनुष्य का भला ही होता है। विपुल जी, द बुक हैज बीन डूइंग रियली वंडरफुल, एंड एनीवन हु gets into this book, you know, it really sparks the imagination. Who is Kabir? Somewhere you link that it's inside me, it's out here. जो कथनी और करनी है उसके बीच का जो मुझे अंतर है, बस वही समाप्त करना है। You must have received many compliments for the book. Which is the best compliment that you have received for this book, and you'd like to share with all of us at Delhi Literature Festival?
That's a very interesting question. She just threw that at me, so I have to think a little bit. There have been many compliments. The one that immediately comes to my mind is that there's a friend in Bangalore. She said that this made her go deeper into herself and find herself in a more deep way, and that I think I felt very good about that.
तो जीवन एक यात्रा है, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं हम सब कुछ खोज रहे हैं और स्वयं को अच्छी तरह खोज पाए, यही विपुल जी को एक बहुत सुंदर कॉम्प्लीमेंट मिला है। विपुल जी, कबीर एक ऐसा विषय है जिस पर हर समय, हर युग में, हर परिस्थिति में शोध, रिसर्च, लेख चलता रहता है। What would be your advice? And you're someone who's done some wonderful work on Kabir, not just here, but alongside your other academic contributions too. What would be your advice to future writers and authors who want to get into the subject of Kabir?
See, my book is on the oral traditions of Kabir. Kabir जिस तरह से गाए जाते हैं. So it's not an academic research, historical research. It's based on the Kabir that lives today. The people who sing Kabir, ordinary folk musicians from Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, different parts of the country. They live in the village. रात को वो बैठते हैं, सत्संग जागरण करते हैं, पूरा दिन काम करने के बाद रात को बैठते हैं चौपाल में और गाते हैं. And this is their sharing, this is their being together. So this is also a community activity. It's also a way to go inside yourself. So at the same time being with other people, at the same time being with yourself. So I would say look into this Kabir, because this Kabir is very precious. The Kabir that is alive in the hearts and voices of people. And if you don't mind, I'll share another song.
And you know, my next question was related to that only. A special dedication for all of us in this Delhi ki Sardi at the 12th edition of our very favorite Delhi Literature Festival. So a special dedication from Vipul Rikhi ji. And ये दिल्ली वाली तालियां नहीं है भाई, दिल्ली वाली तालियां होनी चाहिए. You know, our friend Vipul has come all the way from Goa with a wonderful work and beautiful ideas of the book. So here we are, a special dedication. This is for all of us at Delhi Lit Fest.
So let me share one last song with you, and then maybe we can have some questions. This song is a song by Kabir in which he says, you were talking about strength and practicality. So this is a song of immense strength. And he says, Ya ghat bhitar baag bagiche, yahi mein sirjanhara. In this body there are gardens and gardens. And the creator of these gardens is also in the body. या घट भीतर सात समंदर, याही में 9 लाख तारा. All the 7 oceans are in this body. All the 9 billion stars are in this body. आप उनके दर्शन नहीं कर सकते. या घट भीतर हीरा और मोती, याही में परखनहारा. Countless treasures and jewels reside in your own body. And the jeweler, परखने वाला भी अपने अंदर है. या घट भीतर अनहद गरजे. The sound of the universe resounds within you, me, you, everyone. याही में उठत फुआरा. And fountains of joy erupt where? In this body. So imagine so much joy. कहे कबीर सुनो गई साधो, याही में गुरु हमारा. और जो मेरा गुरु है, मेरा राम है, मेरा हरि है, वो भी यहीं पर है. So please sing along. The refrain of the song says, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. रोशनी हमारे अंदर ही है, लेकिन हम अंधेरे में ढूंढते रहते हैं. तो इसे ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. So please join in. It's a very simple song, sing along. And I love the smiles there. Those guys are the most enthusiastic, smiling away.
You want the mic? Anyone? Yes, please.
आया घट भीतर बाग बगीचे, या घट भीतर बाग बगीचे, या में सिरजनहारा, या सिरजनहारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. Next time join along in ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. आया घट भीतर सात समंदर, या घट भीतर सात समंदर, या में 9 लख तारा, या में 9 लख तारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. ये बात ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. और जोर से ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. थोड़ी गर्मी आ रही है. आया घट भीतर हीरा और मोती, या घट भीतर हीरा और मोती, या में पर कन्हारा, या पर कन्हारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. के बाद ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. गुंजाइश है थोड़ी. आया घट भीतर अनहद गरजे, या घट भीतर अनहद गरजे, या में उठत कुंवारा, या उठत कुंवारा, ढूंढे ढूंढे अंधियारा. ये बात ढूंढे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ढूंढे ढूंढे अंधियारा. कहे कबीरा सुन भई साधो, कहे कबीरा सुन भई साधो, या में ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा. ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ओ ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा, ढूंढे रे ढूंढे अंधियारा.
Beautiful, amazing, fabulous, Vipulji, that was amazing. Okay, with that, let's open the floor. We would invite questions from the audience, and it would be nice if you could just introduce yourself in a line to our different Vipul. And G, volunteers, can we have the mic? Yeah, ma'am, the mic with you. Here we go. So, Vinuji, you have a question? You should have a question.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank thank you. It's very nice. Actually, I understand that we say that to be simple is most difficult. So actually, if I feel, if I say like I am that, like I understand all these things. Kabir was a very simple person and believed in simplicity and ordinary person. So, but like it is very difficult in today's world because we are living in this social media, this thing age. So everything is defined by your this thing. Supreme Court has passed a right to privacy, but nobody practices it. We have to market each and everything. So I mean it's very difficult because other day this actor Pankaj Tripathi was there and Aapki Adalat Rajat Sharma was there, and he asked him, Matt Anu is doing the role. So he asked him that you are a very simple. He said I am a very simple person, but when I became successful, I was asked people, तुम छोटी गाड़ी में आ रहे हो, तुम छोटी गाड़ी में, so that means you are not successful. So I was forced to buy a big. I am a simple person. So society imposes us to be not to be simple because there is certain paradigm in society of being successful, being cool. If I am simple, I am not cool, and it's difficult to be unsuccessful in this world. So that's my question. How to practice it and how to get a response from the society, from the other side of the society. If I say that if I understand these things,
Yes.
all these things. Thank you.
Yes, I understand your pain. See this, I think people 500 years ago were saying the same thing. The thing is, we can always focus on other people, on what society wants from us, और या हम अपनी धुन में चल सकते हैं. कबीर says धुन सुन के मनवा मगन हो जी. उनको पढ़ी नहीं है. अब देखिए कबीर के शब्द आज भी जीवित हैं 500 साल, 500 years later. Would you say he's successful or he's not successful? He was successful inside first, and he didn't care whether he was successful outside or not, right? When you find success with yourself, you stop caring about all these things. Then you also get success outside. That is a separate thing. But I know many successful people who are on Instagram with many thousands and millions of followers who are not successful with themselves, who are unhappy. This is, I'm not talking abstract, real people. So you can be very successful outside and be totally empty inside and hollow inside. Or you can be full inside. And whether success comes or not, it's really not in our hands. So don't bother so much about it. You know, relax. When you relax, things come to you on their own. जो भी तेरा तेरा लग जाएगा करके कोई बहाना. आपको कोई उतनी मशक्कत करने की जरूरत नहीं.
बहुत सुंदर. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना. Okay, with that our next question. अच्छा, भारती दीदी has a question.
Hi, Vipulji.
Vipulji, that's Bharati, founder festival director. Yes.
Hi, Vipulji. I just want to ask a very simple question. And by the way, before that question, I would say that this session was very interesting. And my question is, what do you do to Kabir in the first place?
Yes.
Basic question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for asking that. Someone else had already asked me, and I promised to share that in the session. वो भूल गए हम लोग. कबीर देखिए सबसे पहली मुलाकात स्कूल में हुई, छठी क्लास में, हिंदी की कक्षा में. काल करे सो आज कर, आज करे सो अब, पल में पल हो जाएगा, बहुरी करे. तो ये वो बच्चों को डराने के लिए एक दोहरा यूज़ किया जाता है. हिंदी टीचर्स ने बहुत यूज़ किया है, तो हमने उसकी व्याख्या संज्ञा करके हम बोलते हैं उसको. ठीक है. उसके बाद जो दूसरी मुलाकात हुई, वो पंडित कुमार गंधर्व ने कबीर के भजन गाए हैं. तो कुमार जी की आवाज़ में हुई, लेकिन वो म्यूज़िक के स्तर पे रह के छूट गई. जो असली मुलाकात मेरी कबीर से हुई, दैट हैपेंड इन 2008. आई वॉज इन नियर मसूरी इन केम्प्टी इन अ विलेज, और वहाँ पे देयर इज ऑफ कोर्स अ वेरी, you would know him, very well-known, famous folk singer called Prahlad Singh Tipania. Prahlad ji had come there and he sang. For 4 evenings he sang. और उन्होंने ये परंपरा में से कबीर के भजन गाए. और जब मैंने पहली बार वो सुना, I was blown away. It was mind-blowing. Because I never heard anything like that. उससे मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि ये परंपरा है भी. तो when I heard, because it goes directly to your heart, and it's a combination of poetry, philosophy and music. It's all together. So the music enters into your heart directly, and the philosophy and the poetry also speak to you. So it's such a powerful combination that I was just swept off my feet. And I met Shabnam Virmani, who had made documentary films on the oral traditions of Kabir. तो उनके ज़रिए I met
lot of folk singers in different parts of the country. This folk tradition of Kabir, जिस तरह से लोक में कबीर को गाया जाता है, आम लोग जिस तरह से गाते हैं, क्योंकि कबीर लोगों के लिए, that really took me on this journey where I also became Kabir's. I don't say Kabir became mine, I became Kabir's. And Kabir started using me as his medium.
Namaskar. Yeah, this way, this side. So, hearty congratulations to Team Delhi Literature Festival for curating such a wonderful event. और विपुल जी, मुझे एक तो ये कहना कि बहुत अच्छा समा बंधा और बांधा, और दूसरा ये बताएं कि कबीर ने हाउ टू बी जॉयफुल, इसकी कोई रेसिपी?
हाँ बिल्कुल, एक पूरा भजन है
उसका अगर कुछ एक थोड़ा सा हो जाए।
क्यों कहते हैं मन मस्त हुआ फिर क्या बोले? You've drunk on joy. What is there to say? हीरा पाया बांध गठड़िया, बार बार वाको क्यों खोले? जब हीरा मिल गया तो गठड़ी में बांध के पॉकेट में रख लो उसको, है ना? अपने अंदर की चीज़ है, बार बार खोल के क्यों दिखा रहे हो? क्या बार बार खोल के क्यों देख रहे हो कि है कि नहीं है, कितनी इसका मोल है? तो दिस इज वन रेसिपी ऑफ जॉय. It's within you, find it within you. Then he says, सूरत कलालन भई मतवाली, मदवा पी गई अंतोली. हमारी जो सुरता है, that is our awareness, our individual awareness. He says it's like a bartender. तो हम अपनी शराब ना दूसरों को पिलाते रहते हैं, है ना? तो हम दूसरों को खुश करने में लगे रहते हैं पूरा टाइम. कि आप जो कह रहे थे ना, इसको इम्प्रेस करना है, उसको खुश रखना है, इसको यहाँ पे ऐसा करना है, उसको वहाँ पे ऐसा करना वगैरह. सूरत कलालन भई मतवाली, मदवा पी गई अंतोली. अब वो बारटेंडर ने क्या किया, अपनी शराब खुद पीना शुरू कर दिया और वो खुद मस्त हो गई. अब उसे कोई सोच नहीं है कि इसको पिलाना है, कि उसको पिलाना है, कि उसको पिलाना है. तो आपके पास शराब है, इश्क कह लीजिए उसको या जो मर्जी कह लीजिए, मस्ती कह लीजिए, वो आप खुद पी जाइए, दूसरों को पिलाना छोड़ दीजिए. और वही एक जॉय का, मस्ती का, दैट इज द इजीएस्ट रेसिपी. You already have it. We already have it. Actually, we notice, we feel this. For example, if you go into nature, और 2 मिनट के लिए मन आपका शांत होता है, तो joy springs on its own within you. आपको कुछ करना भी नहीं पड़ता, है ना? So the joy, the source is within us. We just have to tap into that source ourselves. तेरा साहिब है तुझ माही, बाहर नैना तू खोले. Why look outside when you have that source within you? कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधो, साहिब मिल गया दिल खोले. एक छोटी सी राई की उसमें भी साहिब है, तो अपने अंदर तो है.
Yes,
हमारा एक क्वेश्चन है कि अपने आप को आप कबीर की जगह पे रखते हुए डिफरेंट रिलीजन के बारे में क्या व्यू रखते हैं?
देखिए, अभी तो पूरा एक सेशन हो गया डिफरेंट रिलीजन्स के ऊपर. कबीर सीधा कहते हैं, हिंदू मोए है राम कहीं. मैं गा के सुनाऊं? एक दोहा ही है, भजन नहीं है. ए जी हिंदू मोए है राम कही, और मुसलमान खुदा. कहे कबीर सो जीवता, दुई में कदे न जा. हिंदू मर जाते हैं राम कहते कहते, मुसलमान मर जाते हैं खुदा खुदा कहते कहते. ये लोग सब मरे हुए लोग हैं. वही सच में जिंदा है जो इस दुई के भाव में नहीं जाता. क्योंकि जैसे ही आप एक दूसरे को विभाजन करते हैं, अपने आप को एक दूसरे से किसी भी उसमें, चाहे वो रिलीजन है, चाहे वो जेंडर है, चाहे वो कास्ट है, चाहे वो नेशनैलिटी है, चाहे वो रेस है, जब हम एक दूसरे से अपने आप को बांटते हैं तो हम उस सोर्स से कट जाते हैं. दैट सोर्स जिसको राम कबीर कहते हैं या अल्लाह कहते हैं, तो वो अपने अंदर है. जब हम बांटना शुरू कर देते हैं तो वो अपने अंदर से खत्म हो जाता है. तो इतना ही उनका कहना है. राम रहीमा एक है मत समझो कोई दो, अंदर टाटी भरम की जा से सूझे दो. ये राम और रहीम और ये सब पूरा मामला एक ही है. अपने अंदर की सच्चाई तो एक ही है, लेकिन अपने अंदर एक भ्रम की दीवार है. उससे हमें सब कुछ बटा हुआ दिखाई देता
हेलो, यस,
यस
कैन आई रीच? सर, आपने बातें तो बहुत अच्छी की हैं।
जी जी
और कबीर भी बहुत अच्छे हैं।
हाँ
ये बात तो हम लोग जानते हैं और 5वीं 6वीं से पढ़ रहे हैं। लेकिन मेरे मन में एक सवाल उठता है कि जब आप इतने अच्छे उनको मानते हैं और आप उनकी इतनी चर्चा भी करते हैं और घरों में उनको वो सम्मान हम लोग उनको नहीं दे पाते। क्या वो जुलाए हैं इसलिए? क्या वो गरीब कास्ट के हैं इसलिए? क्या उनकी बात जो है वो सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन की है, वो सोल और भगवान की नहीं है? तो इसके ऊपर आप मुझे बताएं कि उनके लिए हम लोगों ने ना तो देखिए जो सिखिज्म है उनके गुरु ग्रंथ साहब में कबीर का नाम आता है। आपके किसी ग्रंथ में, आपका मतलब मेरा भी, हिंदू के किसी भी ग्रंथ में कहीं भी उनका नाम की चर्चा नहीं है। ना ही जब कोई मर जाता है तब कबीर के दोहे बोले जाते हैं। सर, अब वो बंदा तो चला गया, अब वो कबीर के दोहे कैसे सुनेगा? तो मेरा कहने का मतलब है, वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू गिव अ प्रॉपर प्लेस टू संत कबीर. Why is it so? Can you answer this question?
यस सी द आई विल आंसर योर क्वेश्चन. पहले तो जो आप कह रहे हैं वो ठीक है, लेकिन व्हाट इज द राइट प्लेस फॉर संत कबीर? द राइट प्लेस फॉर संत कबीर इज इन आवर हार्ट्स,
रियलाइजेशन,
और दैट इज इन द इंडिविजुअल हार्ट. ये सोशल आप एकदम सही कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि उसमें कास्ट का भी है, कास्ट का एंगल है, और ऑल्सो बिकॉज ही अटैक्ड, उन्होंने अटैक भी किया ऑर्गेनाइज रिलीजन पे. हिंदू और मुसलमान दोनों पे उन्होंने अटैक किया, किसी को नहीं छोड़ा उन्होंने, सब पे उन्होंने अटैक किया. इनके भगवान पे भी अटैक किया, उनके भगवान पे भी अटैक किया, इनके रिचुअल पे भी अटैक किया, उनके रिचुअल पे भी अटैक किया. तो अब उनको ये जो पंडित और मुल्ला वगैरह हैं, जो भी धर्माधिकारी कहीं के भी रहे हैं, तबके और तबके, तो जाहिर सी बात है वो सब एक जगह. लेकिन मैं आपकी बात से सहमत नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि कबीर जो है आज भी लोगों के दिलों में उनकी जगह बहुत बनी हुई है, और तुलसी से ज़्यादा है, और मतलब ज़्यादा कम की बात नहीं है, उतनी है. आप किसी भी आप गांव में आज चले जाइए जहाँ सत्संग और जागरण होता है, कबीर जिंदा है, और मैं उनको इस जिंदा रूप में ही मिला हूँ. मान सम्मान से उनको कोई मतलब नहीं है, उनको लेना देना ही नहीं है. आप क्या कर लेंगे मान सम्मान को? हम उनको कोई श्रेणी में ऊपर रख के क्या हो जाएगा? कुछ नहीं होने वाला, क्योंकि कबीर को अगर जिया नहीं तो कुछ नहीं. तो कबीर जीने की वस्तु है, वो मान सम्मान की वस्तु है ही नहीं, वो प्रेम की वस्तु है. आप प्रेम कीजिए, अगर आपने भी प्रेम कर दिया ना, आप ये मान सम्मान के झगड़े से निकल जाइए, उसमें कुछ नहीं.
बहुत सुंदर वजीर साहब, आखिरी सवाल. यस, बिकॉज आवर नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज ऑन. यस सर.
I have a question.
अच्छा सवाल तो लेकिन यहाँ चलिए.
Here.
यस यस.
Yeah. ऊपर. सीधा. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, two things. एक तो मैं भाई साहब का थोड़ा सा आंसर करना चाहता हूँ. Historically, Kabir happened before Sikhism. So, when Sikhism, the books were written of Sikhism, Kabir was included in it. The books of Hinduism and Islam were written before Kabir, so probably that is why. And I completely agree with our speaker here that Kabir probably is the most known poet, because every kid in my country knows this thing. Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. My question was, what was the hurry? No,
It's a very good question. इस दोहे का मतलब मुझे एडल्ट लाइफ में आके समझ आया जब मैंने गाना शुरू किया. ये बहुत बढ़िया सवाल है, क्योंकि जब हमने स्कूल में पढ़ा तो कुछ समझ नहीं आया, क्योंकि हम तो कहते थे आज करे सो काल कर और काल करे सो परसों. इतनी भी जल्दी क्या है, अभी तो जीना नरसों. लेकिन जल्दी यही है कि अभी नरसों नहीं जीना है, क्योंकि काल कब आपके लिए आएगा आपको कुछ पता नहीं. काल का कोई भरोसा नहीं. हमें लगता है कि हम वर्षों जीने वाले हैं, है ना. हम 5 ईयर प्लान्स बनाते हैं और 10 ईयर प्लान्स बनाते हैं और पता नहीं क्या क्या प्लान बना रहे हैं. कबीर सेज यू डोंट नो व्हेन डेथ विल कम, एंड दैट दिस मोमेंट इज द ओनली मोमेंट यू हैव. पल में प्रलय होगी। वो प्रलय विश्व प्रलय की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, अपनी प्रलय होने वाली है ना। एक पल में आएंगे, एक पल में आपका कुछ भी एक्सीडेंट भी हो सकता है, ये भी हो सकता है, अभी आज सब कुछ ठीक है, कल हो सकता है ना, और ये किसी के साथ कभी भी हो सकता है और होता है, हमने देखा है अपने आसपास। तो ये जो सच्चाई है, मृत्यु की सच्चाई, काल की सच्चाई, तो सबसे अगर आपके पास 2 दिन होते जीने के लिए तो आप सबसे ज़रूरी काम कर रहे होते हैं, क्योंकि हमें लगता है हमारे पास बरसों है जीने के लिए, हम ज़रूरी काम टालते रहते हैं। तो इसीलिए वो कह रहे हैं जो भी ज़रूरी काम है उसे अभी करें, जो सच में ज़रूरी है। ये सब नाम कमाना और मान कमाना और इंस्टाग्राम पे फॉलोअर्स इकट्ठे करना, अगर आपको ये ज़रूरी लगता है तो आप ये कर लीजिए, अगर कुछ और ज़रूरी लगता है तो वो कीजिए। लेकिन कोई भरोसा नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई जवान है तो उसके लिए काल नहीं है, बचपन में भी काल है।
यस, आखिरी टिप्पणी
बिल्कुल जी।
सवाल।
धन्यवाद। आपने कबीर जी के बारे में जो भी बोला वो सचमुच जीवन का मार्गदर्शन है। जीवन का मार्गदर्शन ही यही है कि हम भौतिक युग में रहते हुए प्रभु से जुड़े रहे। अगर आप क्या हो तो मैं एक 2 लाइनों का भजन सुनाना चाहता हूँ, अगर आप आज्ञा।
ये आप ऑर्गेनाइजर से आज्ञा मांगे, ये तो
अजय जी से
मेरे हाथ में नहीं है।
कितना सेकंड मांगा?
सिर्फ जितना आपने बोला उतना।
प्लीज प्लीज।
जय श्री राम। सबसे पहले मैं सबको बधाई देता हूँ। 22 जनवरी को प्रभु श्री राम अयोध्या में सदा सदा के लिए विराजित हो जाएंगे। बहुत बहुत बधाई, शुभकामनाएं। जय श्री राम। इसी के साथ एक छोटा सा भजन, जैसा कि मेरे ब्रदर अजय जी ने मुझे आदेश दिया है, आइए एक छोटा सा भजन। प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो, प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। पाप कटे दुख मिटे, पाप कटे दुख मिटे, लेत राम नाम। पाप कटे दुख मिटे, लेत राम नाम। भव समुद्र सुखद नाम, भव समुद्र सुखद नाम, एक राम नाम। श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम। प्रेम मुदित मन से कहो, राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम, श्री राम राम राम।
बहुत जोरदार तालियां हो जाए।
जय श्री राम।
और मैं देख सकती हूँ अजय जी इस समय बहुत गुस्से से हमें देख रहे हैं, तो इसी के साथ ये सत्र की समाप्ति होगी। जोरदार तालियां हो जाए।
इससे पहले कि हाँ, so before you, I ask you to express my thanks, gratitude. आजकल थैलियों में दिया जा रहा है भर भर के। थैंक यू। कल दोस्तों हम लोग 11 बजे यहाँ मिल रहे हैं। We'll start this session with a rock star performance by Victor Ghosh. She's here, and we then have a formal inauguration at 12 o'clock. We have the Honorable Minister for Culture, External Affairs. We have a book by Mr. R.C. Bhargava, who is also chairman of Maruti Suzuki. And we also have some amazing lines of authors tomorrow and day after. So thank you so much, and a round of applause for our friends from Sikkim, the Sikkim University friends. Thank you so much. You guys have been a great audience, and I would like to express my deep gratitude to all our sponsors also, which is Amul, LIC, Vodafone India, Maruti Suzuki, and of course Books Oxford, Sahitya Academy, Friends of Books, Radio Partner, Chocolate Partner, Gifting Partners. Friends, I must tell you that the preparation for this festival is a very, very exciting journey, and at times it has been very painful also. So I must want to express my gratitude to the lady who is sitting in front of us, Meenu Agrawal, who has really put a lot of effort and labor in ensuring these authors are not small names, let me tell you. Confirming them, coordinating, and ensuring their presence here is a difficult task. And also I would like to thank my friend Manik, who looks after the digital side of it. So we work almost any hour of the day and the night. So it's an amazing experience, and I hope to see all of you. We should have a round of applause again for Mr. He's an amazing person, he's an amazing human being. And you would have experienced by now, through his interaction with all of us here, that his book is over. He's been a Delhiite, I learned, and but he said, I always prefer to have a serene and a calm place. That is why he's now settled in Goa. So, but he himself is so, I would say, so saintly looking. I mean, when we saw his first video, my sister, she said, no, kisko bula rahe ho? Maine kaha, there's a guy who's done a book on Kabir. And then I shared some pictures and videos. And after seeing that, no one could say no. So thank you so much, people, and wish you all the best. We'll miss you in Delhi, and whenever you're in town, let's be in touch. We should exchange notes, and hope to have many more books from you. Any plans to have any books? And I'm sure you're planning something. You have a mic. If you could just mention that something is there. No, but okay. But you have something in mind? No. Awesome. So thank you all, and you guys are a lovely audience. Hamare Sikkim wale, the show ends now, so we all have to leave now. So nothing tonight. So tomorrow we meet all of you. Thank you so much. Good night. And let's rock it. Thank you. Thank you.